Everybody, good afternoon. Welcome to Edumont. Welcome to our webinar here where we'll talk about is July really the end for CPA 2023 or CPA in India? So, title to काफी controversial है, but I'm going to try and answer the exact question. Is this really the last call? Is this the last point? I'm going to talk about that. We'll also talk about the details of the CPA profession. You know, what is CPA? What is the eligibility criteria? What is the exam scope? What is the career scope after it? Sari detail आज we'll try and cover in 1 hour. But before I get into any of that, let me quickly introduce the team that is involved in the production of this webinar here at Saturday on 4:30 when the rest of the world is enjoying their weekend. So firstly, we have Mohit, who is on the host PC. Mohit is our senior most program advisor and he's very well experienced. So if you have any questions, feel free to put things in the chat. Mohit is already putting things in the chat for you. So आपको भी कोई सवाल आए, put it in the chat. With that being said, it's not like you can't ask me any questions. If you want to ask me any questions directly, please feel free to raise hand. So there is an option in your Zoom to raise hand. If you're joining on a mobile device, तो menu में check कर लो. And if you're joining on the laptop, you'll be able to see it in the bar below. With that being said, as far as asking me questions is concerned, you can raise hand. We'll find out that you want to talk. We'll allow you at the right moment. Then just unmute yourself and ask your question. So it'll be as if we're on a phone call in so many ways. With that being said, I also have Himanshu right behind on the camera, who is in charge of the hardware, making sure everything looks good. The lighting looks good. I look good on the screen. And then we also have Saurabh, who is joining as a co-panelist. So when the workload increases and you have too many questions, Saurabh will also be in a position to help out. He's the head of our operations, so he understands really from an operating aspect how the CPA journey takes form. With that being said, my name is Rohan Chopra. I am a CPA and a CMA. I'm also your primary CPA faculty. So I personally take care of more than 60% of your classes. I actually teach them myself. With that being said, I also recently became India's first CPA to have his own TED Talk. So that was an interesting experience for me, going on the TEDx platform and talking about the edtech industry at large. So you're welcome to search for that on YouTube if you will after the session, if you so want to view it. With that being said, हमारी बात तो हमने कर ली. I also want to find out who you are, because it is a Saturday, it is 4:30. You could just be relaxing, but you chose not to. You chose to come here and find out about CPA. You're obviously interested. I want to see who you are. So there's a poll, quickly release करते हैं. उसमें 3 questions हैं, very basic questions about your education. Nothing personal as such, just your education background. Just fill those 3 questions in. When you do, I will know कौन किस background से आ रहा है. Then based on that, I will be able to tailor today's session to your needs, keeping in mind your viewpoints. So what that is on the screen. Thank you for seeing it. There it is on your screen. Go ahead, take a pic. Okay, we're done with our polls. I hope सबको polls तो दिख रहे होंगे. Again, if you're joining from a mobile device, you may not get the the best response. Okay, everybody did. Let's go take a look at what the results were. So 100% of you came from the commerce background in class 12th and also in college, naturally. Mohit, what about the third question? Could you tell me that? How many people are still studying? 10% of the audience is still studying. So 10% of the audience is still doing their graduation and they're figuring out कि अब सीधा नौकरी join करें, or is there an alternative qualification out there that they can attain, and hopefully that will help get them to start at a better point than everybody else in their peer group. So I understand where you're coming from. Okay, what about people who are graduates? 60% of the audience already graduated. So you know what that means? That means you guys are now in a position where you can start applying for jobs, or you're already working. And either ways, you have a similar sort of question that the guy before you had, which is बस यहीं पे ग्रो करें या कुछ पढ़ लें या साथ में कुछ पढ़ाई हो सकती है that can help us get a promotion, get a better level of work, start off at a higher pay scale. That's probably what you're thinking as well, and I get where you're coming from. What about people who got a master's and people who got a post grad? ये कैटेगरी में कितने लोग हैं? So for masters it's 20%. 20% of the audience today has a master's or a post grad qualification, which means you're obviously working because you're highly qualified, but now you're also figuring out, is there a possibility to do something on the side of my job that will help me attain a higher level, or maybe help me serve better clients and consequently also get rewarded more in the process? So I understand where you're coming from. Similarly, a similar thought process will exist for people who got a professional qualification. What is the percentage for that? 10% of the audience today sitting here is professionally designated, in the sense इनके पास CA या CS या ICWA या CPA या ACCA ऐसी professional designation that you put next to your name. These guys are obviously highly qualified. They are people who are now wanting to take up the next level. They're trying to figure out, is this a course, is CPA something that will add value to my existing qualification and help me attain a higher role at maybe the same or a different organization? I get your point as well. I understand. And a fun fact for you, 40% of the Edumont audience is actually chartered accountants, qualified chartered accountants. So it's quite a high percentage. And as it happens to be, today is what, the National CA Day in India. So I wish you a happy National CA Day if you're here with us, a CA. I wish you that. From one brother to the other types. Okay, let's move on straight into the slides, Mohit. Now that I understand what the audience is like, I will be able to tailor the session to your needs. That being said, presentation में चलते हैं. And it's not going to be an ordinary, boring presentation where I'll, just lapse into one small box. ऐसा नहीं होगा. I'm, in fact, in the presentation with you, I'm here. Hi. And I'm going to be able to interact with certain elements. And Mohit will be able to move me, make me smaller or bigger, whatever he chooses to do with it. With that being said, let's actually move on to the first slide and answer the most basic question for today. What is CPA? So I'm sure you've heard this before. या तो ऑनलाइन देखा होगा कहीं या किसी दोस्त से सुना होगा, और मे बी अ काउंसलर वुड हैव टोल्ड यू. सीए जैसे इंडिया में होती है वैसे यूएस में सीपीए होती है. सो जस्ट लाइक यू गॉट सी इन इंडिया, CPA is an equivalent to that degree for the US. That's a definition that's not entirely inaccurate, but it doesn't really convey the scope. If it's the same thing, so why are 40% of my audience, my students, chartered accountants? Why are they already qualified CAs looking to do CPA on top of it? कुछ तो अलग होगा ना scope में. So that is the point. Let me try and explain that to you. So just like you've got SEBI in India, SEBI क्या कहता है? Securities Exchange Board of India कहता है, if you are a publicly listed company, you need to get yourself audited. So public company needs to be audited, and the person who's going to do the audit is going to be a CA. Whoever signs off on the audit report in India has to be a CA, right? But that's not where a CA stops, right? A CA also does the accounting and reporting. It's a different CA because of independence issues. External auditor alag hota hai, but a different CA does the accounting and reporting. A different CA would help with tax work. A different CA would help you with consulting related questions, right? कि मैं अपने business को कैसे चलाऊं? Should I raise more debt, more equity? Should I build in more fixed cost or more variable cost? What should be the leverage that I keep in my business? Whatever your question is, you could take it to your CA as long as it relates to accounting and finance, right? That's the beauty of it. Similarly, in the US, you have the SEC, Securities Exchange Commission. SEC ये कहता है, if you are listed on American soil, you need to be audited. And the person who will do the audit is a CPA. And that CPA is going to be different from the CPA that does the accounting for it. And there may be a different CPA who does the tax work on this same business financial statements. And there may be a different CPA who's required for consultancy related questions. So yahan tak to similarity hai. But when we talk about the fact that we're talking about publicly listed companies on the American soil, we're actually in secret referring to the New York Stock Exchange, which is the world's largest stock exchange. There is no stock exchange which is larger. There is no other stock exchange where you can access more capital on a given day than you can on NYSE. Iska dusra naam, famous naam is Wall Street. The thing is, the minute a company is large enough to get listed on the New York Stock Exchange, and again, try and understand कि ये दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा stock exchange है. So जो companies यहाँ listed हैं, they can't be small companies, right? They can't be companies that are just listed on their, or not even listed in their own home country. They have to be companies that are multinational, that are achieving a certain revenue threshold. So you have to be of a certain size to get listed on NYSE. मैं उसकी बात भी करूंगा अभी. The minute a company gets listed on the New York Stock Exchange, they don't have a choice. They need a CPA. It is a legal, a statutory requirement. That is the idea. And that's the difference in scope I was trying to tell you. This is why 40% of the existing audience just chartered accountants hai, are looking to do CPA because they understand, they realize that the quality of work and the quality of the client is proportional to the market that you serve. So if you're able to serve the American market, or if you're able to serve companies that are listed on the American Stock Exchange, so you're able to serve a better class of client. That is the idea. अब इसकी बात थोड़ी सी और डिटेल में करूंगा मैं, but before I get there, let's actually move on to the next slide, Mohit. And let's have everybody understand a little bit about what's currently going on in the US. अभी यूएस में क्या है, there is a shortage of CPAs, there's a shortage of accountants, specifically CPAs and CMAs, people who would take up accounting and finance related job roles. अब उसमें भी ऐसा नहीं कि freshers की कमी है, that's not the point. The point is they have a lack of managerial staff. So if you look at the headlines right here, ये Wall Street Journal का article है, उसकी headline आप देखो अगर, या Washington Post का article है, इसकी headline अगर आप देखो, तो you'll find that yes, there is a steep shortage of CPAs in the US, but let me tell you why that is the case. So what's happened is 75% of the managerial staff at Big Fours, at CPA firms, basically taking up these key audit, tax, accounting, these job roles, these guys are due for retirement within the next 15 years. तो 75% of the managerial staff जो होता है वो, they're not kids, they're not freshers. These are guys who are experienced, 10 years in the business, 15, 20, 30, it grows with time. So these guys are retiring in the next 15 years. You know what's accelerating the problem? 60% of these retiring individuals are retiring in the next 5 years. So it's happening rapidly. वो बंदा जो retire हो रहा है वो तो retire होके चला जाएगा ना. And now to fill up that job role, you need somebody who's just as experienced. वो है नहीं. You can now build a pipeline, but that will only be freshers joining into the business. So this seems to be a huge issue in the US right now. Okay, how do we deal with this? What do we do about it? The thing is, it's not a problem at all because the world has already figured out a solution. American companies have already started implementing it. And Mohit, let's take everybody to the next slide. Let me show you what the solution looks like. So right now, because there is a shortage of CPAs in the US, companies have decided that, okay, let's not wait for CPAs to grow and get more experienced in the US and for the retiring guys to leave. Let's not wait for a crisis to occur. Let's do a little bit of proactive checking. तो proactive checking क्या है? जो already outsource हो रहा था काम इंडिया को, उसका थोड़ा सा speed बढ़ा देते हैं. So that's what they did. Companies such as Boeing, which is a drastic example, fired their entire F&A department in the US, all of them. और फायर करने में प्रॉब्लम भी नहीं थी, शॉर्टेज है तो ये सब बंदे जो है कहीं ना कहीं अच्छी हाई पेइंग जॉब्स पे चले जाएंगे, नो प्रॉब्लम एट ऑल. बट मोर इंपॉर्टेंटली विद द मनी सेव्ड, वो जेब में नहीं डाल रहे उसको, इंस्टेड दे आर आउटसोर्सिंग द वर्क टू इंडिया, सेविंग मनी ऑन द प्रोसेसिंग ऑफ दिस पर्टिकुलर task, and then on top of it, with the payroll money saved, they're hiring more engineers in the US so that better planes can be built. As a result, the world is a better place because better planes, and we also get better jobs, and we also as Indians receive a piece of the action, right? That's the beauty of it. So you're already, and now we're gearing up for even more work. So if you look at it, PwC and KPMG and even EY and Deloitte, they're hiring in bulk. They're expanding their sizes. EY just came off of a hiring spree. KPMG, Deloitte, and PwC are right now still in that spree and hiring more and more people every day. What are they hiring for? कि ये सारा काम जो बाहर से आना ना, बोइंग जैसी कंपनी, माइक्रोसॉफ्ट जैसी कंपनी, एप्पल जैसी कंपनी, if they can't find CPAs in the US, they're going to outsource it, which is what they should do, and they already are doing it. So the speed only increases. So there is more work, more workload in India, more need for CPAs in India. That's the moral of the story right there. There is a shortage of accountants in the US, but that is equal to opportunities for you and I in India. That's the beauty of it. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Let me actually also explain to you what are the job areas that a CPA can work on. But next slide, let's also talk about the job market. Okay, so the idea is there's actually 6 areas where I'd like to fit, CPAs into. कि ये 6 areas हैं जहाँ पे हम jobs बड़े आराम से हमें fitment मिल जाएगी, हमें job मिल जाएगी. That's the idea. Now, with that being said, number one is obviously the big four, the big six: EY, KPMG, PwC, Deloitte, and big six below RSM and Grant Thornton. So these are the companies that obviously have a a special place in our hearts because they have brand value, and we as F&A professionals feel more valued in the industry also after we have a certain amount of experience from these companies. Just like it is in CA, right? CA में भी अगर कोई EY, KPMG, Big Four का है, तो they have special value. That's the sort of thing, right? Same thing here. I get it. And that's an easy place to get into because all of these companies are running US operations. Deloitte का वाले का नाम है USI, EY वाले का नाम है GDS, Global Delivery Services. KPMG का क्या नाम है Mohit? Do you remember? I don't even remember the name. KPMG US operations is called KGS. Correct. Absolutely, it's called KGS. So ऐसे इन्होंने ना global services, KPMG Global Services, KGS. Correct. तो इन्होंने अलग अलग ऑफिसेज इंडिया में खोले where the intention is, let's have a client like Microsoft or a client like Apple or a client like Netflix that is focused on their product, send in their extra work like accounting. We'll process it here in India because India is a hub for data processing. And if you've been living under a stone for the last few years, you may not know this, but India is to data processing what China is to manufacturing. So we're looked upon as the central point, the hub. तो ये सारा काम आप हमको दे दो and we'll be happy to do this work for you at a fraction of the cost, which could include again audit, could work tax, could include tax work, could include accounting work, could include transaction advisory, or a back end process in business process consultation. So it could be in either of the four areas that we originally discussed. यहाँ पे काम मिल सकता है. But in addition to that, we also have what, just give me 1 second. I think something went wrong here. Yeah. Okay. Okay, I see what happened. Just give me 1 second. So I'm also referring to a screen, by the way. The game is up. But with that being said, it just sort of disappeared there for a second. It's back online. Just wanted to talk about the second thing that's happening here, which is India's massive outsourcing industry. India has a massive outsourcing industry. It's set up with the idea कि आप बाहर से काम भेजो और हम देखेंगे. And companies like Genpact, companies like Accenture, companies like EXL, companies like FIS, companies like you name it, AIG in fact is also doing the same sort of thing. They're all in this business of send work from abroad, we'll get it processed here. So company like AIG doesn't even need a third party client. In fact, it's so big कि वो अपना ही सारा वर्ल्ड ऑपरेशंस का काम इंडिया में प्रोसेस करा रहे हैं. And the thing is, you have to understand that these companies, they need a CPA to do the accounting because they need somebody who understands US GAAP. And that is because they're listed on the New York Stock Exchange. And once you are listed there, तो SEC, Securities Exchange Commission, उसने फिर ये guideline set की हुई है that you don't have a choice. You have to, no matter what, you have to submit your financial statements that are audited as per US GAAP and in dollars. So to meet that requirement, वो सारी US accounting करानी पड़ेगी all across the world for every subsidiary that's across the world. चाहे वो कंपनी यूके में खोली हो आपने, या इंडिया में खोली हो, या चाइना में खोली हो, उसकी US accounting चाहिए. So who's gonna do all of that work? You're gonna need a CPA to do it. That's the point. Then there's the third option that's available to us, which is the 10,000 plus major brands that are listed on the New York Stock Exchange that need people within the organization, that need people to be on the reviewing end. Genpact को काम आउटसोर्स किया है, ठीक किया नहीं किया है, इसकी भी तो एक रिव्यू टीम होनी चाहिए इंटरनल. इतना तो होना चाहिए इंटरनल स्टाफ. That is the point. So that internal staff is available. That job role is available to an experienced CPA. So now think about it. What would you consider a brand, a global brand, something that sells across the globe? तो यूरोप में भी बिकता है, अमेरिका में भी बिकता है, इंडिया में भी बिकता है, चाइना में भी बिकता है. Something that is global. You name that brand. I'll tell you, I promise it is listed on the New York Stock Exchange, either directly or through its parent entity. There's only really one exception in this, and that's Rolex. That's the only brand that's a global brand, Rolex, घड़ियां बनाते हैं, that is still a limited liability company back in Switzerland. It's not listed anywhere. Even in Switzerland, it's not listed. That's the only exception. इसके अलावा जो भी आप मेजर ब्रांड समझते हो ना, ब्रांड है ये, सारे लिस्टेड है ऑन द न्यूयॉर्क स्टॉक एक्सचेंज, एंड दे ऑल नीड एसोसिएट से लेकर मैनेजर लेवल तक से लेकर सीएफओ लेवल तक, they all need people in the business, and this is a very strong area of employment for you. So even if you look at, migrating abroad, this is the sort of pool that you would be applying with. If you're migrating abroad, in companies that apply karoge, in addition to just, the big four and the big six, this will be your primary client pool. That's the point. In addition to that, you also have foreign investment and investor buds. Another place where having two qualifications will be very useful. So, 40% of my class is CAs, I told you, right? Same 40% people are actually sort of interested in this section. Why is that the case? So the idea is, if you think about all of these big startups that got famous and became unicorns in India in the recent 10-15 year period, all of them have been funded by an American venture capital firm. It could be Sequoia Capital or SoftBank or whatever, but they've been issued funds from an American investor, in simple language. So the American investor जो है, just like we have biases, they also have biases. And the American investor, or any investor for that matter, will feel, especially if they're a foreign investor, will feel so much more confident in investing in you if the CFO of your startup is dually qualified. मतलब उसका local qualification तो है, which in our case would be CA, but he also has the ability to speak the language of the investor, which is CPA in this case, in most cases. India के तो सारे unicorns mostly have been funded by, American investors. So you can figure out that having these two qualifications will really help you put yourself up onto the global stage. And starting up with, a startup that is on its way to becoming a unicorn as a CFO, that is quite an enticing opportunity. So that's another something that people are really looking forward to, especially in our class. That being said, the other way to look at your possible destination for a job could also be on the tax front. So I spoke about this ke American accounting chahiye, right? That's correct, because the SEC wants you to file a consolidated financial statement. So let's say, yeah, there's a company like Amazon, which obviously is a listed company on the New York Stock Exchange. It's an American company, but more importantly, Amazon India bhi to ek company hai na, but it's a subsidiary of the foreign mother company, parent company. So ये जो subsidiary है, this will trade, यानी कि buy and sell in rupees. It'll have a profit in rupees. It'll pay taxes in rupees. Now the problem is, this Indian entity is a subsidiary of the parent entity, and at the end of the year, the financial statements that have to be submitted to the SEC are consolidated financial statements. So I need to consolidate this Indian entity into the American entity, but I can't do that. क्यों? ये तो इंडियन गैप IND-AS के हिसाब से बनी है, यहाँ यूएस गैप चल रहा है, यूएस में जनरली एक्सेप्टेड अकाउंटिंग प्रिंसिपल्स, डिफरेंट सेट ऑफ अकाउंटिंग प्रिंसिपल्स ऑल टुगेदर, एंड ऑन टॉप ऑफ एवरीथिंग एल्स यहाँ रुपए हैं, यहाँ डॉलर्स हैं. So not only do you need to remeasure the foreign currency, you also need to change the gap, convert Indian standards into US gap. You need somebody who understands this fully. So ये जो है, this is the accounting aspect of this transaction. Similarly, at the end of the year, when Amazon goes to the IRS and it asks the IRS के बस मैंने जो टैक्स रिटर्न फाइल करी है वो आपने कहा था कंसोलिडेटेड हो, तो कंसोलिडेटेड की है, तो आपने टैक्स कितना बनाया है, and then the tax bill comes, Amazon will say, you know what, hold on, this is not correct, I need a credit on this. Why? Because you see, consolidated entity पे जो उसकी इनकम पे आपने टैक्स लगाया, partly has been raised in India, and in India we've already paid taxes on the Indian share of the income, so we deserve a foreign tax credit, which is essentially a tax break, so that we are not taxed twice on our foreign income, especially income that is from a country like India, which has a dual taxation treaty with the US. ये doubly tax नहीं करेंगे. So this is the tax aspect of the same transaction. Who are you going to rely on for all of this information, for all of these foreign tax credits, who's the company going to rely on? A CPA. It has to be a CPA, right? Who else will know all of this? So that's another very strong source of employment. Now, let me also talk about the future a little bit and tell you that new technologies are often looked upon with distrust. हम अक्सर ऐसे देखते हैं नई टेक्नोलॉजी आ रही है, चैट जीपीटी will replace you. And you know what, I'm going to probably do a session later on, is chat gpt going to replace cpas? But let me tell you a few things. As the new technology comes on board, new avenues open up. Blockchain का नाम सुना है? सुना तो होगा. But can you tell me how it affects your daily life? Probably not. But here's the deal. Blockchain is a peer-to-peer network that allows you to store data in multiple subledgers, thereby making it incorruptible. This is very secure, highly secure. So now there's a lot of data that Wall Street banks actually receive on a daily basis when they trade on the NYSE floor. In fact, that data is a lot. New York Stock Exchange receives 3 terabytes of data per second. 3 TBS per second. So it's a lot of data, it's metadata, right? Needs to be stored still, right? So blockchain is a good rapid network that is very secure. Let's use it. So start testing with it, and they successfully do it. And you know what? Now at the end of the year, an auditor has to go through the records that are kept by the bank. उसको audit trail चाहिए होगी, auditor audit trail evidence मांगेगा. So where is the evidence of all the daily trades? Is it stored in a system that I can just see? Is there a Word file? No, of course not. It's huge metadata and it's stored in the blockchain. Now you need somebody who understands how the blockchain functions so that they can audit through the blockchain. And as a result, in 2024, blockchain auditing is being added into the CPA curriculum. So eventually you will find there are people who will make it into the blockchain auditing world. They will be specialists of their jobs and they'll get highly paid for what they do. And nobody else in their profession does. So new technology will bring along new avenues, new areas where you can show your interest and take a step forward. These are the 6 areas that I would roughly like to show you as possible sources of employment once you become a CPA. Speaking of which, what does it take to become a CPA? Mohit, let's move on to the next slide. Let's talk about the exam pattern. Because if you want to become a CPA, then you need to understand exam pattern kya hai, and you need to pass the exam as well. So usually you'll find there are 3 types of questions that are available in the CPA exam. Number 1 is going to be MCQs. These are the most common. And MCQs is multiple choice questions, 1 question, 4 choices. Simple. Next up is task-based simulations, TBSs. TBSs are, like the name is suggesting, an actual task, right? It's an actual task we expect a first-year associate to be able to perform. जैसे अगर audit का पेपर है तो they'll say audit की report में blanks है, fill in the blanks. या अगर टैक्स का पेपर है तो they'll say ये रिटर्न है, इस रिटर्न में कुछ एरर्स हैं, आइडेंटिफाई द एरर्स. या फिर if it is एग्जाम फॉर अकाउंटिंग and reporting, they'll ask you to pass journal entries as an example, so उसमें टास्क करवा रहे हैं. But again, this is not subjective, these are again objective. So even if there's a blank, for every blank there will be choices you can choose from. तो 10 choices होंगी, 4 नहीं होंगी. Just like in an MCQ there are 4 choices, वैसे नहीं होगा. It's going to be different. In a TBS, there will be 10 choices for every blank, every small question that's in it. So what you can say is TBS is like a task with multiple sub questions and multiple sub choices. That's the right way to put it. So that being said, the third type of question is the WCT, the written communication task. So if you've heard online that the CPA exam is 100% objective, that's absolutely rubbish. लिखना पड़ता है. WCT is an essay जो आपको author करना पड़ता है. अब लिखने से मेरा मतलब ये नहीं कि हाथ से पेन पेपर से. What I'm saying is you got to type it into a PC, because the CPA exam is a computer adaptive exam. But let's put a pin in all of this for now. Let me tell you a few things about the CPA exam, and especially let me start off by telling you that there are actually 4 subjects in the CPA exam. The way this is indicated abroad is that there is only one CPA exam that has 4 sections. But India में हम कहते हैं कि CPA में 4 एग्जाम है, because each section is actually independent and needs to be passed independently. तो इसमें ग्रुप टोटल वाला सिस्टम नहीं होता जो CA में होता है, वैसा नहीं है इसमें. Each paper is independent, हर पेपर को independently पास करना है. जब चारों हो जाएंगे CPA बन जाओगे. That is the idea. Now with that being said, you've got 4 subjects. Audit, that's obviously auditing, AUD. FAR is financial accounting and reporting, that's accounting. Next up is reg, which is US tax regulation, so tax regulation and business laws. And lastly, you've got BEC, business environment and concepts, which is the consulting wala subject. तो चार हमारे हमने डोमेन्स बताए थे, चार एरियाज ऑफ एम्प्लॉयमेंट, वही चार हमारे सब्जेक्ट्स भी हैं और वही चार हमारे एग्जाम्स हैं. ईच एग्जाम इज फॉर 4 hours, so total 16 घंटे की टेस्टिंग. But with that being said, if you look at the table that's right here below me, you probably notice इसमें लिखा है testlet 1, testlet 2, testlet 3, testlet 4, testlet 5. What is this? What is a testlet? And of course, your first guess के group होगा is absolutely right. This is a group. It's a group of questions. तो हर एग्जाम में there are 5 groups. एक एग्जाम 4 घंटे का है तो उसमें 5 ग्रुप्स अटेम्प्ट करने होते हैं. Which brings me to a question. Why are there 5 testlets? Why not have 6? Why not have 4? 5 क्यों चाहिए एग्जैक्टली? कोई कारण है इसका? है. इस पे पिन लगाओ. I'll talk about this in the next slide. For now, let me talk about the fact that let's look at the exam pattern and understand that in the 4 subjects, the first 2 testlets, which have a 50% weightage, are always MCQs. तो चाहे ऑडिट का पेपर हो, फार का हो, रेक का हो या बैक का हो, first 2 testlets will always be MCQs and they have a 50% weightage. The remaining 50% is always TBSs, task-based simulations, except for in BEC. BEC में जो लास्ट वाला टेस्टलेट है ना, उसमें WCT आते हैं. So WCT actually are the rarest form of questions. सिर्फ 3 ही होते हैं, एक ही पेपर में होते हैं, और हर WCT में you have to author about 500 words. That's about it. 500 words. So it's about 1500 words that need to be typed into a PC. That's the exam pattern in a brief, brisk manner. Let's move on to the next slide because I want to ask you a question. यार एक बात बताओ. You just heard me tell you that 50% of the CPA exam is MCQs and the other 50% is also objective. So it's basically mostly objective, right? So just because the CPA exam is objective, does that make it an easy exam? Yeah, more importantly, you've seen ads online probably, you've seen other institutes tell you CPA वो तो यूं हो जाएगा, ऐसे ही हो जाएगा. और कुछ एड्स हैं कि मैं तो 4 पेपर एक साल में दिए और मैं प्लेन पकड़ के यूएस जा रहा हूँ. ऐसी एड्स भी हैं. The implied message is the CPA exam is easy. I want to know from you, what do you think? Well, there's a poll. Let's quickly release that poll. There it is on your screen. यार आप बताओ, आपको क्या लगता है? Is the CPA exam easy? Well, this is the wrong poll. Well, this is the wrong poll, I think. आपने अगर फाइनल रिमार्क्स वाला लॉन्च कर दिया, right? Right. So there it is on your screen. How easy do you think is the CPA exam? It's on your screen. Go ahead, tell us. So do we have a responses, Mohit? Okay. Can I see the responses, Mohit, on the screen? There it is. So easy to किसी ने नहीं चुना. That's a good thing. As far as medium is concerned, 17% of the voting audience voted कि medium होता है यार. ज़्यादा मुश्किल नहीं, ज़्यादा आसान नहीं. What about the percentage of people who thought it's hard? That's 58%. 58% of you thought it's hard. It's a difficult paper. And very hard is 25%. So 25% of you think it's very hard. So आसान तो किसी ने नहीं बोला. But I'll tell you, this is not the right way to look at it. मोहित उसको बंद कर दो. Let's just close this onward. Let's talk about this. कौन बनेगा करोड़पति का एग्जांपल लेते हैं. The first question, which is for $1,000, is fairly easy, right? It's not a difficult question. It's an MCQ question. It's fairly easy. And the last question, which is for 1 crore, it is very difficult. So difficult that there's a handful of people who've ever really won a crore rupees at KBC, right? है तो दोनों ही ऑब्जेक्टिव, फर्क क्या पड़ता है इस बात से? द पॉइंट दैट मैटर्स इज द इंटेंशन ऑफ द एग्जामिनर. एग्जामिनर क्या चाहता है? नाउ एज फार एज द CPA exam is concerned, the first thing you need to know is that to pass the CPA exam, you need to score a 75 percentile or more. So this is not a percentage, this is a percentile. Percentile bolu to different cheez ho gayi na. So let me tell you how this percentile works. And the fact that it's 75, right? Let me tell you how this works. आमतौर पे, how do we get scored? If there's say 10 questions of equal weightage and you get 7 of these right, so you get 70% score. But that's just based on one matrix, one variable. कि ये है percentage of accuracy. That's one variable. The American percentile system for the CPA exam works slightly differently. उस system में क्या होता है कि there is two variables. Now to have two variables, what is the second variable going to mean? The second variable is a level of difficulty. मतलब मतलब एक तो accuracy क्या है is always relevant, but also level of difficulty for the questions that were answered वो भी बड़ी relevant है. So remember I asked you a question, why are there 5 testlets in the CPA exam? Let me try and answer that question for you. There are 5 testlets in the CPA exam because the CPA exam, I told you, is a computer adaptive exam. And your level of difficulty of questions asked in the exam change based on your past performance. और CPA exam में 4 बार level of difficulty compound होती है. So what are we talking about? Well, let me explain this to you. Let's say in testlet 1 you're doing all right. So testlet 1 आपने किया और testlet 1 में आपके मान लो 80 या 90% accuracy आ गई. Accuracy is good. Now testlet 2 will become even more difficult. Testlet 2 और difficult हो जाएगा. So testlet 2 difficult हो गया तो level of difficulty went up, तो percentile went up. Now in testlet 2 you're not going to get 90% accuracy because थोड़ा difficult हो गया. So let's say your accuracy dropped to 70 or 60%. Doesn't matter. You're still on the upward trajectory. Testlet 3 will become even more difficult. तो accuracy कम हो जाएगी, कम हो गई तो भी कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. मेन चीज इज लेवल ऑफ डिफिकल्टी पंप अप होती रहनी चाहिए. वो कैसे होती है? बाय कीपिंग योर एक्यूरेसी at a certain positive trajectory. But let's say what is a negative trajectory? Let's talk about that. Let's say in testlet 1 you do really poorly. Testlet 1 में you got like a 50% accuracy. तो testlet 2 ना आसान हो गया. और जब testlet 2 आसान हो गया तो now in testlet 2 you got even 100% accuracy. It didn't do much. It just went back to where it started. It wouldn't go up. The level of difficulty wouldn't go up. The percentile wouldn't go up. That's because you're on the downward trajectory there. So CPA एग्जाम में 5 टेस्टलेट इसलिए चाहिए क्योंकि टेस्टलेट 1 के बाद लेवल ऑफ डिफिकल्टी चेंज होगा, 2 के बाद भी, 3 के बाद भी, 4 के बाद भी, 5 के बाद नहीं होगा, पेपर खत्म हो जाएगा क्योंकि so it's going to change 4 times. That's why there are 5 testlets in each exam and it depends on your performance. And the more accurately you respond in the initial testlets, the more difficult the questions become, and the more difficult they become, the more marks, the more percentile you get. I hope that answers the first basic question के percentile 75 क्यों चाहिए और 75 कैसे आएगी. This is how the system will work. That's number 1. Number 2, now let me also talk about, this is the intimidating factor by the way, 75 लाने, वो भी percentile percentage में. This is what will intimidate you and make you think ये तो मुश्किल होगा काफी. Hold on. Now let me talk about the second thing that's actually very very useful. The thing that makes the CPA exam very different from everything else is the skills that are tested in the CPA exam. So आमतौर पे इंडिया में हमारी जो टेस्टिंग होती है, it's based on the idea कि no matter what you're studying, could be a school paper, could be a college paper, no matter what you're studying, could be a PhD का exam. The idea of our testing is there's a blank piece of paper, you are to fill that paper in. To fill in a blank piece of paper, the very natural stress that you will put in your brain will be on memory, because very clearly you have to remember words that you've read before. So try to quote from the book. और क्योंकि हमारा टेस्टिंग पैटर्न ऐसा है वेयर वी प्रमोट द आइडिया कि ब्लैंक पेपर पे जितना क्लोजली बुक के लिखा हो, जितने एग्जैक्ट टेक्निकल टर्म्स लिखा हो, उतना अच्छा है, राइट? सो एज अ रिजल्ट व्हाट हैपेंस इज in our testing pattern the primary objective of a student is to take multiple notes of the books, take multiple reading of the books, spend more time on the books, and then try and reproduce that in the exam. हमारा स्टडी पैटर्न हमारे टेस्टिंग पैटर्न से डिफाइंड है. जो आप टेस्ट करोगे फिर वही हम स्टडी करेंगे, दैट इज द आइडिया. But in the CPA exam, the skills that are tested, and this is available to you right here, and this is in descending order. What, could you just check the camera for a second there? This is in descending order. The idea is सबसे पहले शुरू होता है इवैल्यूएशन, फिर एनालिसिस, फिर एप्लीकेशन, और लास्ट में रिमेम्बरिंग. So this is in descending order. बोले तो the most important thing here is evaluation, then it is analysis, then it is application, and lastly it is remembering. मतलब सबसे least important remembering है. तो our study pattern is based entirely on remembering being the main thing, and their study pattern is different. They're saying remembering is the least important thing here. Even if you don't catch on to the buzzwords of evaluation, analysis, whatever, you can still understand this basic disparity between the two testing patterns, right? इतना तो तब भी महसूस हो रहा है कि उल्टा है बिल्कुल उसका. And again, ये information अब मैंने नहीं बनाई है. You can go on Google and find this. You can just put in on Google AICPA blueprint. AICPA, American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, the body that gives out the CPA degree. AICPA blueprint, ये लिख दो, आ जाएगा. Blueprint क्या है? Is the official syllabus. Is the syllabus for each exam. उसमें हर एग्जाम में ये चीज मेंशन होगी यार. सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट है इवैल्यूएशन. सो नाउ आई एम श्योर you're wondering, अच्छा ये तो टेस्टिंग पैटर्न बिल्कुल ही अलग होने वाला है, तो what do we do about it? First things first, tell me this and tell me in the chat if you agree with me. If the testing pattern is changing, our study pattern has to change. We can't have the same old study pattern that we did before. ऐसे नहीं हो सकता कि आप सीपीए की पढ़ाई कर रहे हो तो आप किताब लेके बैठे हो 6 घंटे और किताबें रटे जा रहे हो. That will be of no use in the CPA exam. First, tell me, do you agree with this? Does this thing sort of make sense to you? Chat में बताओ quickly. So tell me in the chat. Absolutely, a different pattern should be there. Absolutely. Thanks, Deepak sir. Thank you. What about everybody else? That's just one person telling me that. Okay, thank you. Yes, pattern should be different. Right, right. Thank you. Right. Right. What about everybody else? प्लीज देखो यार, अगर ये किसी होटल के कॉन्फ्रेंस रूम में या किसी ऑडिटोरियम में हो रहा होता ना, तो आई वुड बी एबल टू टेल बेस्ड ऑन योर रिएक्शन. यू नो, शक्ल देख के पता चल जाता है कौन एग्री कर रहा है कौन नहीं कर रहा. राइट नाउ आई डोंट हैव दैट लग्जरी. आई कांट डू दैट. यू कैन सी मी बट आई कांट सी यू. सो ऑल आई हैव दैट आई कैन रिलाई ऑन इज योर चैट मैसेजेस. तो प्लीज मुझे चैट में बताओ यार, डू यू एग्री विद दिस, डू यू डिसएग्री विद दिस? डू यू सी हाउ, since the testing pattern is different, since the very structure of the exam is different, it's objective plus skill based, तो हमारा टेस्टिंग पैटर्न अगर चेंज हो गया तो हमारा स्टडी पैटर्न सेम नहीं होना चाहिए. इट हैज टू चेंज. इफ यू अग्री विद दैट, then let's actually move ahead to the next slide. Mohit, let's go there. Right. So the idea is, first things first, let me give you a general rule that you should understand when it comes to the study pattern. The general rule is, अगर आप कोई अमेरिकन क्वालिफिकेशन पढ़ रहे हो, and it could be CPA, it could be CMA, it could be CFA, it could be something else. As long as it's an American qualification with an objective testing pattern, you have to understand that your time now needs to be devoted into two parts. So let's say for every day you sit for 2 hours to study for your CPA prep. तो दिन का 2 घंटा कैसे तोड़ना है, I'll tell you into two parts. 1:3 के रेशो में तोड़ लो. 1/4 of the time needs to be spent in reading the book. So 2 घंटे में से आधा घंटा in revising the theory. तो थ्योरी रिवाइज करने में, बुक को क्विक स्कैन करने के लिए, रीड करने के लिए वो आधा घंटा देना चाहिए आपको. एंड देन द रिमेनिंग hour and a half, 3/4, 75% of the time needs to be spent in the online test bank. OTB, online test bank, which as the name is suggesting is a tool. It's an online test bank, question bank, right? That's what it is. It's an online question bank. But here's the deal. That online question bank demands 75% of your attention. So I don't know, आप में से कई लोग दूसरी इंस्टीट्यूट्स में एनरोल कर चुके होंगे, कुछ लोग दूसरी इंस्टीट्यूट्स में एनरोल करने के बावजूद यहाँ आ रहे होंगे, कुछ लोग सिर्फ बात करके आए होंगे, कुछ ने बात भी नहीं की होगी. But I can tell you, there aren't any institutes in India except for Edumont that will actually draw your attention to the idea of the test bank. despite the fact being this is the most important study tool, even more important than the books. And I will address the elephant in the room. I know I'm probably the first teacher ever who's telling you कि boss किताब कम पढ़ो. Because आज से पहले जितने टीचर लोग से बात किए होंगे उन्होंने सबने कहा होगा सवाल का जवाब किताब में. Read the book. But I'm telling you not to. That's because they taught you different type of subject. I am trying to teach you an American qualification which has a skill based exam, and in the intent of building a skill you need to practice. Because think about it, yeah, whatever you consider is a skill, could be singing, could be dancing, could be driving, could be swimming, could be whatever you consider is a skill, उसमें रियाज लगता है, उसमें practice लगती है. You have to do it over and over and over until you reach a point where you become really good with it. That's what we're trying to do. And I'm not trying to get you 100% there. The intention is to get you almost there. Enough that you are in a position to pass the exam. So the test bank really plays a pivotal role. But now that it is such an important aspect in your preparation, iske saath gadbade hoti hain. And here is a small point of scam that's in the market that you need to be aware of, that you need to be wise against. AICPA ना अपना मटेरियल नहीं प्रिंट करता. जैसे इंडिया में ICAI prints its own material. They will offer their own official study source material. AICPA does not do that. Instead, AICPA has 5 approved vendors, और उन approved vendors के पास ये content रहता है. They can sell it and they owe a royalty back to AICPA. इसके अलावा दूसरा ऑप्शन ही होता है उस कंटेंट को कॉपी कर लो, पायरेट कर लो. तो पायरेटेड कंटेंट भी मिलता है मार्केट में और अप्रूव्ड भी मिलता है. You have to be clear on what is approved, what is pirated, and what is the difference. See, the CPA exam, the syllabus changes in this. It's a dynamic exam. तो कुछ कुछ देर में amendments आते हैं because the laws keep changing in a little while. So as the laws change, the amendments happen, the course changes. You need to make sure that you get updated content. So unless you have an approved AICP approved study material, you will not be the first one getting the updated content. अगर आपके पास pirated या unapproved या whatever unofficial version है of the study material, तो वो कॉपी कर रहे हैं किसी की, तो जब तक ओरिजिनल वाला मटेरियल अपडेट नहीं होगा, कॉपी भी अपडेट नहीं होगा. But if you are the original provider, the approved provider, you get access to this update instantly. Soon as it's effective, it's available to you. That's the beauty of it. So that's number one. Number two is having approved material also means that you will have access to a test bank that is well defined. So approved का मतलब ये नहीं कि हमने इनको बस approve, it means the content is approved. तो कंटेंट जो है it is as per the syllabus guidelines. AICP इस पे approval stamp दे रहा है. उसके अंदर जो questions based हैं are following the ratios that have been set forth by the AICP. And the content in general there is by and large content that is authoritative in nature, that is absolutely correct in nature. So that means it is approved. तो एक तो ये ऑप्शन होती है. दूसरी होती है इसका फिर वही कॉपी कर लो. वो इंडिया में हर तरह का जुगाड़ चलता है यार. That's just how it is. So that being said, let me tell you who are the approved providers. और इनके अलावा अगर कोई छठा नाम आपको कभी सामने आए तो समझ जाना ये approved नहीं है. Approved providers 5 ही हैं. कौन कौन से हैं? वाइली है, रॉजर्स है, बेकर्स है, सर्जेंट है, ग्लीम है. ये 5 है. इसके अलावा कोई भी और स्टडी मटेरियल आपको ऑफर कर रहा है कोई भी इंस्टीट्यूट, उसको हाथ जोड़ के मना कर दो, बोलो हमें नहीं चाहिए. क्यों? क्योंकि थोड़ा सा सस्ता पड़ता है. In comparison to official study material, थोड़ा सा सस्ता पड़ता है. But when you fail an exam, you lose 3 times the value. वो भी मैं बताऊंगा कि एग्जाम की कॉस्ट क्या है. एंड व्हेन यू फेल एन एग्जाम तो ऑल योर मनी गोज डाउन द ड्रेन. एग्जाम की फीस फिर भरनी पड़ती है अगर एग्जाम फेल हो जाए तो. अगर ये अटेम्प्ट कर रहे हो तो, अगर ड्रॉप ही कर दिया तो फिर तो सब कुछ ही डूब गया. और अगर ड्रॉप नहीं किया, अगर कंटिन्यू करा आपने, तो एग्जाम की फीस फिर पे करनी पड़ती है. तो हैविंग अप्रूव्ड study material will really greatly impact the odds of you passing in one attempt. That's why you need to have approved content. Now, when it came to us, we chose Wiley. Why did we choose Wiley? Why not have, say, a Rogers or a Beckers or a Sargent? I'll tell you, based on the current market scenario where we are today, Wiley is the only company that provides access till you pass as standard across the board. बाकी सारों के access till you pass products हैं, but they are at a price premium. So India में आमतौर पे when you go to an institute, you offer them, we want to join in. They give you the fee. They quote the fee. The fee would be roughly similar in the entire market. It's basically the same for anywhere you go. But with that being said, some players will be offering you local material. They'll be able to undercut the price. They'll make a more enticing deal for you. क्योंकि instant gratification है ना, डिस्काउंट, उसी समय खुद को ग्रेटिफाई कर लो, उसी समय खुश हो जाओ कि मैंने पैसे बचा लिए, तो इंस्टेंट ग्रेटिफिकेशन मिल जाती है. व्हाट अबाउट लॉन्ग टर्म ग्रेटिफिकेशन? तो वो एक ऑप्शन होती है. बट इफ यू टॉक अबाउट द अप्रूव्ड कंटेंट प्रोवाइडर्स, एनी एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशन इन इंडिया दैट्स प्रोवाइडिंग अप्रूव्ड कंटेंट will have a similar sort of price. But the difference is what you get for your money. What do you get for money? With Wiley, you get access to pass. With everybody else, you only rent the business. That is the business model. You only rent the study material. क्या मतलब? Access till you pass means that the content will keep updating till you become a CPA. If it takes you 3 years or 5 years to become a CPA, you will have access to all the 5 years of updated content and updated questions. And as standard, we will also be offering access till you pass on all Edumont services. So you will have access to training and access to assistance and access to updated notes, the whole thing, right? But the idea is, if you go down the road of, let's say, a Becker or a Rogers or a Sargent, तो अभी के लिए ये प्रॉब्लम है कि दे आर नॉट ऑफरिंग एक्सेस टू यू पास अ स्टैंडर्ड. तो व्हेन यू एनरोल विद एन इंस्टीट्यूट, पहले तो बताते नहीं है कि भैया ये अनलिमिटेड एक्सेस है या नहीं है, इसको गोल करने की कोशिश करते हैं. सेकंड, व्हेन दे कम टू द पॉइंट, जैसे हाँ अगर आपको अनलिमिटेड एक्सेस वाला चाहिए तो वो आपको मिल जाएगा, उसके लिए यू हैव टू पे दिस मच प्रीमियम. एंड थर्ड ऑप्शन इज यू से नहीं, मेरे को चल जाएगा तेरा स्टडी मटेरियल, मेरे को नहीं चाहिए अनलिमिटेड एक्सेस, मैं तो लिमिटेड टाइम में सीपीए कर ही लूंगा, मुझे पक्का है. अगेन, डू अकाउंट फॉर अनसर्टनिटीज. कोविड जैसी चीज फिर हो जाती है, अगर आपके साथ कुछ ना भी हो तो कभी कभी दुनिया के साथ चीजें हो जाती हैं. So please understand that the world does still go on, but the idea is things can happen that are not as per plan. So planning for uncertainties is a good thing always. So if you're not able to clear in a specified time and you go with a limited access material, तो कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. बस इतना है कि जब आपका टाइम पूरा हो जाएगा, आपको रिन्यूअल के लिए फिर से चार्ज देना पड़ेगा, फिर से पैसे देने पड़ेंगे. तो वो पैसे कितने होंगे? 50% ऑफ द इनवॉइस वैल्यू. जितने का भी स्टडी मटेरियल मिला है उसका 50% फिर पे कर दो, 6 महीने की एक्सटेंशन मिल जाएगी. That's the cost of not buying a access till you pass product. And that is the situation with most providers. But at Edumont, we try to do this differently. That's why we've got approved content from AICPA with access till you pass at phenomenal or reduced pricing, जिसकी मैं बाद में बात करूंगा अभी. Right now, my question is, since the test bank is so important in your preparation, you have to spend 75% of your time there. तो एक बात बताओ, do you want to see what the test bank looks like? If you are interested, if you give me a yes or a no in the chat, so I'll be happy to take it that way. If you're not interested, बाद में देख लेंगे टेस्ट बैंक का भी, तो ठीक है आगे बढ़ते हैं. Let's move on to the next slide. And if that isn't the case, if you want to see the test bank, please let me know in the chat. Give me a yes or a no. Do you want to see the OTP? I can give you a walkthrough of the OTP in 3 minutes. No problem at all. पूरा टेस्ट बैंक कैसा दिखता है, क्या होता है उसके अंदर, I can show you the full thing. Are you interested? Do you want to see it? Okay, thank you for that one response. What about everybody else? Okay, okay, thank you.
Devram is asking a difference between Beckers and Wiley.
अच्छा, तो इसकी बात कर लेंगे, इसको पिन कर लो अभी क्वेश्चन दिव्यम का. कोई दिक्कत नहीं, वैसे मैंने कुछ हद तक मैंने भी जवाब दिया. बट दिव्यम, योर क्वेश्चन इज वैलिड कि व्हिच इज बेटर, वाइली और बेकर्स. आई विल आंसर दिस क्वेश्चन व्हेन वी गेट टू द Q&A सेशन इन अ लिटिल बिट. अभी के लिए मेरे पास सबके जवाब तो आए नहीं यार, बहुत कम लोगों ने जवाब दिया. आर यू इंटरेस्टेड? इफ यू आर, लेट मी नो. गिव मी अ यस और अ नो. सब हाँ करोगे तो आगे बढ़ूंगा ना. सिर्फ 4-5 लोग करोगे तो कैसे पता चलेगा मेरे को बाकी लोगों का क्या इंटरेस्ट है. ओके, यू वांट टू सी द टेस्ट बैंक? You want to see what it looks like? But let's show everybody what the test bank looks like. Okay. Here's a look at the Wiley test bank. At random, I've chosen the subject regulation. On the home page, you're greeted by 3 choices and also a basic overview of your test bank completion, your practice exam completion, and also the flashcard completion. Let's start off by going to the test bank. As you can see, we start off with the topics distributed to us in 5 groups. Let's say you select the first part. You can then further divide each subtopic into even smaller topics. And then you can finally select, let's say I've taken up this particular topic, licensing and disciplinary systems. So there are 10 available questions from this. Let's say I want to launch 3. It says 6 minutes is the time I should take. Question 1. So I'm going to wing it this time. Let's guess it's A. Oh, I made a mistake. When I make a mistake, I need to understand what went wrong. Then I need to select the right choice and then figure out why is it the right choice. If I don't agree with the logic here, I should then flag the question like I already have. Let's move on to question 2. Select one at random. I got that right. Let's move on to the third one. I got that wrong. I do the same thing this time. When I get it wrong, I see if the logic is correct. Even in question 2, when you get it right, always see if you agree with the logic here. So let's say I'm done with this and I want to submit. So I save and quit. When I do this, it takes me to the results page where I can see and assess my overall performance. I can also see what was the correct choice and what I selected. I can then analyze what the reasons are, look at the explanations available to me, and determine if I want to keep this question where it is or if I want to flag it. Let's return back to the test bank. When you take up enough of these sessions, we can go to the metrics section where I can see what your performance level was like. So in this case, it's a bad case because we started off with 67% accuracy, but then it only declined. We can see that trend and we can also pull up the very first assessment that you chose. In fact, we can pull up pretty much all of your performance because the metrics section logs everything and it presents the number of custom assessments you've taken right here. You can also download the report. This actually is the basis on which we will judge your performance and then tell you if you're ready to take the exam or not. Then there is also the practice exam section where you're supposed to get 90% or more. We personally at Edumont prefer if you get 95. You can choose practice exam A or B, which are unknown questions, which are not questions you've seen before in the test bank, or you can choose an unlimited amount of practice exams from the test bank itself. And then you can begin the assessment. It's a 4 hours exam with a total of 84 questions. You are so you just saw what the test bank looks like, right? You saw in the test bank there are three types of questions. These questions you get right, questions you get wrong, questions you flag. ये तो important है. In addition to that, you also saw the metrics section, which is logging your daily performance. And the teacher is able to analyze that performance and look at it and figure out कि ये ठीक रास्ते पे जा रहा है student या नहीं जा रहा है. Now I'll get into all of this in a little bit more. Let's move back into the presentation. And I want to actually talk with you what is the study pattern. क्योंकि जो हमने अभी टेस्ट बैंक देखा है उसको यूज करते हुए हमारा एक स्टडी पैटर्न नजर आ रहा है मुझे बनता हुआ. The study pattern is right here. The 5 steps that need to be followed. Number 1, do all of the MCQs. एक बार आंखों से सारे MCQs निकल जाने चाहिए. This should happen while you're attending your training. So on Saturday and Sunday, when you're studying with us, when you're going through the concept classes, you're taking the lectures, when you're free during the week, do the questions, practice the test bank. When you practice it, you're doing step 1. Step 1 करते हुए एक चीज का ख्याल रखना, बार बार सेम क्वेश्चन को रीलॉन्च नहीं करना. Otherwise you'll end up learning the questions, and if you learn the questions तो बेड़ा गर्क हो गया. क्यों? Because this is an exam which is based on skills. So in the exam the questions will be unseen. आपने पहले देखे नहीं होंगे और वो किसी भी स्टडी मटेरियल से नहीं होंगे. There will be fresh new questions. In fact, they will change based on your performance, right? So the only thing you can rely on in the actual exam is the skills that you develop, जो आप खुद अपनी skills बना लो. So in this process, intellectual honesty is very important. When you're doing step 1, अगर question गलत हो जाए तो मान लो गलत हो गया, उसको relaunch करके उसको correct नहीं करो, उसको वहीं छोड़ दो. Similarly, when you're doing the questions or questions सही हो जाता है तो always find out if it's for the same reason. तुक्के से तो सही नहीं हो गया, अगर तुक्के से सही हुआ है तो flag करो उस question को. Which brings me on to step 2. Once you're done with all of the MCQs, you'll have about a 60, a 70, or a 50% accuracy. In some cases, it will start off with 40% accuracy. Accuracy pretty low in the beginning. But you've gone through all of the questions and you've done the entire training. Now starts step 2. This is the time when you should be putting in your self-study hours and utilizing your time in preparing better. Now that you know in step 1 50% accuracy आई है, let's say 50% आ गई, तो 50% टॉपिक्स तो ऐसे हैं जो हो गए, एक बार में बात समझ आ गई. 50% of it is still remains in the gray area, needs to be worked upon, needs to be reread. That's step 2. We'll launch the incorrect questions separately and try and correct them. But before we do that, we'll do one round reading of the Wiley study material. We'll go through our weak topics and only read what requires to be read for the topics in which we are weak. बस उनको पढ़ के एक बार टॉपिक और अच्छे से समझ के we'll do step 2. But this time we'll, from the errors we made in the past step, we'll try and correct our errors, and we'll, from the reading that we've done, apply the new knowledge we got. Now that we have this, our accuracy will actually go up to about 80-90%. और लास्ट का 10% 5% अभी भी बचेगा, वो अभी भी ठीक नहीं होगा. This is a question you've done thrice. It's still going to be a question that is still wrong because you feel ये question में कुछ ऐसा है जो समझ नहीं आ रहा, or you feel this question is too complicated, or you feel this question is out of syllabus. बार बार गलत हो रहा है. These are questions you flagged. That is step 3. For flagged questions, now these are those dark areas where knowledge should have existed, but you're finding a blank spot. Don't worry. If you're drawing a blank, don't worry. Get in touch with your faculty for these questions. Send in these questions via email. Reach out via telephone to your faculty. Do some extra reading from what the faculty is recommending you. मेहनत थोड़ी लगेगी, थोड़ी रिसर्च एक्स्ट्रा लगेगी, ये जो डार्क एरियाज इनको फिल करो. And again, let me tell you something. Everybody goes through 5-10% flag percentage questions, but they're often very different for different people. कोई क्वेश्चन किसी वजह से फ्लैग करता है और कोई क्वेश्चन किसी और वजह से फ्लैग करता है. Everybody's got different weak areas. Flagging allows us to identify those areas, and that's what we work on. Fill up those areas, reattempt the flag questions, and now you have 100% accuracy in the MCQ section. 100% MCQ तैयार हो गए. Now comes along step 4, doing the other type of questions, TBSs. MCQs नंबर में ज्यादा होते हैं, TBSs कम होते हैं. आमतौर पे एक एग्जाम में 8 ही होते हैं, MCQs 60 plus होते हैं. So the idea is there's a lot more MCQs in the test bank as well, and lesser number of simulations. So simulations are a lesser load of work, but they are also to be done in the same fashion as you did the MCQs. So once do all of the TBSs. And if you make mistakes, acknowledge those mistakes and understand what went wrong. Then reattempt the incorrect TBSs. Finally, if you flagged anything, look at that. Same thing cheeze karni hai. Once you're done with step 4, your TBSs and your MCQs are both done and your test bank is 100% complete. Now comes along step 5, the mock exams. Mock exam के अंदर अब score लाना होगा. Score अगर 95 आ जाता है, तो you are in a perfect situation to go give the exam tomorrow. You have my blessing. Speaking of which, let's move on to the next slide. Let me talk about what is this. You have my blessing, मेरा approval, we will judge your performance. क्या बातें हो रही हैं? Let me tell you, ये क्यों बात हो रही है? There are 3 things we do here at Edumont that actually make you exam ready. So of course you got to know the study pattern, and just you knowing the study pattern is not enough. I have to enforce it. So we actually do game plan calls. We connect with the students, and you are supposed to, after every step, report back to your faculty, tell them what you've done so that they can tell you what the next step will be, what is to be done in the next step. एक दो subjects ऐसे कर लोगे ना, third subject से you will have so much more clarity yourself. But first 2 subjects, so at least there has to be immense hand holding, and you have to let the institute know what you're studying, what you're doing with your performance. The institute has to respond back. The thing is, this is not something that's common across the industry. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. Let me tell you the 3 things that we do here at Edumont that actually make you exam ready. Let me start off by talking about number 1 is our concept classes, which happen on Saturday and Sunday from 10:30 to 2:30. 4 घंटे की 2 classes. Now these are not just regular online boring classes. It's not a PPT class. So presentation देने के लिए, sales pitch के लिए, all of that, या कोई ऐसे general ज्ञान के लिए PPT might work. We're using it for the webinar purposes, fine. But I don't like to study this way. I don't like to teach this way, and I'm sure even you don't want to study this way. PPT से पढ़ना बड़ा मुश्किल है. पढ़ने के लिए जो the thing that connects us is the way we've been studying for the entirety of our life so far. Having a teacher on a board, he's explaining everything, and if you have a question, you raise your hand and you say, you know what, I have a question, I want to ask this question, right? Not only do you ask questions, your classmates also ask questions, so everybody gets to understand क्या हो रहा है collectively as a classroom. That's the point. So that's what we do on Saturday and Sunday. Even though it's a Zoom class, is designed in such a way, the technology has been implemented in such a way that despite it being on Zoom, it's an actual class. You can put things in the chat, you can ask questions via voice, and I will be there to respond. And more importantly, whatever I teach comes up on a whiteboard so that you can feel connected to the idea of what we call chalk and talk. जो सबसे पुराना method हमारा चलता आ रहा है, chalk and talk, right? It's not something I've coined. I haven't coined this term. This term was coined by the Teachers Association of I think UK, and they did a research on what was the most effective way of training in masses. The best way of training masses is chalk and talk. So that's what we do. PPT, that's number one. But a lot of people give classes, yeah. So that's not enough. And me telling you 75% of your time needs to be spent in the online test bank is again not enough, because just me telling you won't make it happen. We have to go ahead and demonstrate this. We have to show you how to do the test bank. So on Tuesday and on Thursday, in addition to the Saturday Sunday classes, we run a separate 1 hour class late at night from 10 to 11. रात को 10 बजे क्यों है class? Because well, 95% of the Edumont audience is working. तो 5% ही लोग हैं जो स्टूडेंट्स हैं, तो मोस्ट लोग तो दिखेंगे नहीं ना मेरे को, क्लास में ही नहीं होंगे अगर मैं ट्यूसडे को 12 बजे क्लास रखूंगा दिन में, तो कोई होगा ही नहीं क्लास में. सो द बेस्ट वे टू डू इट इज टू डू इट एट नाइट. रात को 10 बजे तक ऑफिस भी हो गया एंड डिनर भी हो गया, तो आ जाओ 1 घंटा पढ़ लेते हैं. Here let's do the questions together and let's find out why it takes you 5 minutes to solve this question. What is the trick to do this in 2.5 minutes? How can you save yourself some time? What are the tricks, what are the tips to doing the questions in the online test bank? Now you'll find this is something that not a lot of institutes cover. The minute you want to find out कि OTV class होती नहीं होती, तो your institute list now narrows down to 2 maybe 3 institutes across India. That's it. बाकी सब जगह नहीं होती. क्यों? परवाही नहीं है ना, आपको पढ़ा दिया मैंने क्लास में, अब देख लो खुद ही. That is the general attitude. Not at Edumont, because we're an institute that promises to you one thing: we'll help you become a CPA in one attempt. So to make sure everything happens in one attempt, you never fail an exam, we need to provide you the right guidance, not just for classes, but also for the test bank. Now, if for some reason on Tuesday or on Thursday you're not available, don't worry. Every session, including this one, gets recorded and gets updated in the LMS, Learning Management System. So you will never miss out on a class if you're not available for the class. क्योंकि recording मिल जाएगी उसकी. That's the beauty of it. Now, with that being said, the other idea is of having a class on Tuesday and Thursday. The other idea in this setup was we don't want to be like the ordinary institute where you join in, you take your class on Saturday and Sunday, and then forgive me, you just forget about it. You know, from Monday to Friday, you forget about it. Saturday, Sunday class, like Monday to Friday, bhul gaye. We don't want it to be this way. We want it to be this way that your whole week, even if you don't have time to study, even if that didn't work out for you, this week was hectic for you, we still want you to be in touch with us. तो हमने सिस्टम इसलिए ऐसे बनाया कि सैटरडे संडे को क्लास है, मंडे को छुट्टी है, ट्यूसडे को फिर क्लास है, वेंसडे को छुट्टी है, थर्सडे को फिर क्लास है, फ्राइडे को छुट्टी है, बट सैटरडे को फिर क्लास है. So every alternate day we're in touch with you, even if it's just for an hour, and even if it's just doing 10 questions, we're doing those questions together. That is what counts. So that's the second thing. Now the third thing that we do that's really useful is the safety net system that we provide here at Edumont. The safety net system is you won't fail an exam because you weren't prepared for it. ये नहीं होगा. क्यों? Because here at Edumont, we don't just say, if a student says, I'm ready for the exam, we don't just tell the student, जाओ पेपर दे आओ. ऐसे नहीं होता. If you come to me and you tell me you're ready for an exam, we'll say, great, but before you pay your exam fee, let's do a quick prep check. The game plan call that I was talking about is a part of this process. Not only do I know where you've come from, what your score in step 1 was and what your score in step 5 is, I'm also finding out what are the topics that are weak for you. And if at the final prep check level we find कि यार अभी दे सकते हो एग्जाम, वैसे ऐसा कुछ है नहीं, बट 2-3 टॉपिक्स आपके कमजोर चल रहे हैं, here are a set of 50 extra questions and 100 extra pages to read. ये पेजेस पढ़ लो और ये जो एक्स्ट्रा क्वेश्चंस हैं इनको सॉल्व करके ले आओ. आई थिंक यू विल बी इन अ पोजीशन देन टू गिव द एग्जाम. अब दे दो. Isn't that better? Aren't you likely to score more? But most importantly, now if a student is not prepared for the exam and it's clearly visible to the faculty he is not visible, he's not scoring well in the mock, he's not giving a good result in the metrics, I don't see his average session lasting very long. If I see all of those indicators, I'll tell you ना, रुक जाओ, अभी तैयार नहीं हो, एग्जाम की फीस मत जमा कराओ, 2 हफ्ता रुक जाओ, ये पढ़ लो, फिर चले जाना. Right? When you go through this way, you don't fail. That's the beauty of it. That's why we are so confident in what we do. We promise to you at Edumont, because we'll help you become a CPA in one attempt. That is our company motto, because we know exactly how to achieve it and exactly what needs to be done from a student's perspective as well. Does that make sense? If it does, let's move on to the next slide. What? Right. Now, just like we were talking about the 5 steps, and we doing game plan calls, sort of connecting the faculty and the student together through the various steps. That's not just for one purpose. That's actually the general tone of the operation. So there's actually 6 stages in which a student would ultimately become a licensed CPA and get placed. Step 1 would be starting from getting evaluated, knowing which evaluation agency and which state board to go with. Then doing your training and your self-study, preferably with Edumont if you so choose. If not, good luck to you. And then the third thing would be, now that you've sort of trained, you want to apply for your NTS, apply for the exam, schedule the exam, and then pass it. Once you've passed the exams, you're on to step 5, which is you want to start off with applying for your license. Once you've applied for your CPA license, you're a full-on CPA. And once you are a full-on CPA, your first choice will be, now I want to go and find out how to reap the benefits of my qualification. So when I want assistance in either getting placed, or I don't need assistance in getting placed, but I need help in finding out how do I negotiate a better salary. Both of these possibilities could exist. And that's the beauty of it. No matter where you are in this 6-stage situation, no matter what stage you're on, the Edumont team will be able to dedicate time to assist you in this process, to handhold you. फॉर्म कौन सा भरना है और उसके अंदर क्या डिटेल डालनी है से लेकर किसको क्या पे करना और कब पे करना है, the whole journey is assisted. One thing that I can't do for you though is I can't make a false claim to you, and this is serious. I think I should discuss this with you. आपने शायद ऑनलाइन कहीं देखा हो, प्लेसमेंट गारंटी की बात कर रहे हैं कुछ फर्म्स. Some firms out there, out of एक फर्म कर रही है, out of pressure एक फर्म कर रही है because it's very nasty, just wants to, तो वो कस्टमर को कह रहे हैं कि हमारे यहाँ प्लेसमेंट गारंटी, उनकी एड भी चल रही है इस पे. Ask them this question, if for example I apply with a KPMG using your tool and KPMG rejects me in the interview, do you have a guaranteed method with which you can still get me into KPMG? मान लो इंटरव्यू नहीं होता, नहीं क्रैक हुआ मेरा इंटरव्यू, तो क्या मेरे को KPMG फिर भी फिट करा दोगे? तो द काउंसलर देयर, whoever you speak with will tell you कि नहीं ऐसे नहीं होता, एक्चुअली बहुत सारी जॉब्स है मार्केट में, तो कहीं ना कहीं तो आपको प्लेस कर ही देंगे किसी ना किसी बड़ी कंपनी के साथ. And that should tell you that this is not a guarantee. This in fact is what we call a placement assistance and a placement assurance program, which is something we offer at Edumont. We offer it in ACES. I offer 100% placement assurance कि ये गारंटी है कि कहीं ना कहीं नौकरी लगवा देंगे, पर ये गारंटी नहीं है कि आपकी नौकरी आपकी डिजायर्ड फर्म में हम लगवा के ही देंगे. Because at the end of the day, there is a due interview process that has to be passed and you have to pass it. What I can do is I can help you in making sure that your CV is designed or written as per the ATS system, as per the automated system. What we can do is help you out in preparing for the interview, टेलिंग यू व्हाट हैपेंस, व्हाट डू यू डू जब गोगली फेंकता है कोई सामने से, या ऐसी कर्व बॉल फेंकता है कि आंसर नहीं पता होता है. हाउ डू यू इंटरैक्ट विद दैट सॉर्ट ऑफ अ क्वेश्चन? विल गिव यू द डूज एंड द डोंट्स, विल गिव यू द जनरल एडवाइस. we're not going to give you a guarantee. And if you're seeking guarantee कि गारंटी दो कि मेरी ईवाई में या केपीएमजी में लग जाएगी नौकरी, तो वो कोई नहीं दे सकता मार्केट में. हाँ, ये हो सकता है कि वी ऑफर यू प्लेसमेंट अश्योरेंस कि यस इट इज अश्योर्ड that we'll get you placed in a good firm, whichever shall have you. If you mess up in the interview, that's upon you. I cannot possibly change that, right? With that being clearly stated, let's move on to the next slide, where I want to talk about the 2024 changes. So the thing is, if we talk about the 2024 content changes, we have to first understand कि अभी 23 में जो 4 एग्जाम्स चल रहे हैं, ऑडिट, फार, रेग, बैक, इसमें से ऑडिट, फार और रेग are considered more difficult than BEC. So if you were to take a sample of 10 CPA students from different institutes across India and ask those 10 students भी सबसे मुश्किल पेपर कौन सा है, तो कोई ऑडिट, कोई फार, कोई रेग बोलेगा. कोई सहमति नहीं मिलेगी. बट ये 10 के 10 लोगों से पूछोगे सबसे आसान पेपर कौन सा है, आज की तारीख में 10 के 10 स्टूडेंट बताएंगे इट्स बैक. बैक इज द इजीएस्ट. दैट इज ट्रू. बट इन 2024 बैक इज बीइंग रिमूव्ड, एंड इन द प्लेस ऑफ बैक यू विल हैव 3 स्पेशलाइजेशन सब्जेक्ट्स, जिसमें से एक आपको चूज करना है. तो योर टोटल नंबर ऑफ पेपर्स विल स्टिल बी 4, but there will be a specialization subject that will be introduced with a considerably higher level of difficulty. Now, with that being said, I'm not saying there's something wrong with the 2024 testing pattern. या अगर आप 2024 में एग्जाम दे रहे हो तो आप पास नहीं करोगे या कोई भी दिक्कत आएगी, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. But it's just the 2023 pattern is very familiar. It has an easy exam in it, and you are actually in just the nick of time. तो हमारे इस वेबिनार का जो टाइटल है वो ये था ना, इस जुलाई द लास्ट मंथ फॉर सीपीए. You're damn right, it is the last month for CPA as per the 2023 model, because इसके बाद 24 का ही करिकुलम पर आएंगे हम. Even from the next month onwards, we will not be taking the 23 curriculum anymore, and there's a very good reason behind it. The paperwork process involved to appearing for your first exam itself will take 3 months, and that window is closing on the 1st of October. तो 3 महीने का पेपर वर्क का जो जो विंडो है वो खत्म ही हो जाएगा अगर, तो फिर कोई पॉइंट भी नहीं ना. अगस्त में आकर बीएससी पढ़ने का कोई फायदा ही नहीं, क्योंकि आप अप्लाई ही नहीं कर पाओगे उस पेपर के लिए. The window is coming to an end from the institute's timeline perspective. So from our standpoint, our agenda is abhi ke liye you are actually the last lot of people who have the option of sticking with the old pattern. In fact, Mohit, let's take everybody to the next slide. If you stick with the old pattern, you will actually be granted an extension. So अगर आप 2023 में अपना BEC का एग्जाम पार कर लेते हो, you can stick with the old model up until June 30, 2025. 23 में पेपर देते हो तो 2025 तक के लिए you can stick with the old pattern. But the thing is, you can't now dilly dally. You don't have time now to think 10 times. You don't have that kind of time. You have to now commit, because you have to start. If you're interested in BC, you have to start now, and then you'll have to start your paperwork as well. And वो paperwork अभी शुरू करोगे तो सही टाइम पे आ जाएगा सब कुछ, and then you'll be in a position to take up your exam. That's the idea. But if, for example, you are in the mood to dilly dally, you are in the mood to take some time, you are in the mood to wait a little, that's fine. Wait a little, but then say goodbye to BEC. BEC नहीं हो पाएगा फिर उस केस में, because you will no longer be allowed to even apply for it. Not just by us, but by the institute in general, by AICPA in general. So there won't be that option available at all. Which is why this is the last BEC batch ever. Not just a 23, ever. And other institutes will also not be offering BEC after this. Last slot to get into it is the point. Now, let's move on to the next slide, boys. Let's actually talk about the CPA eligibility. A point of contention for many, a point of confusion for many. कि यार ये पता नहीं ये जो 2023 का सॉरी ये जो CPA का एलिजिबिलिटी है मेरा बनेगा या नहीं बनेगा. And if you ask an institute or a counselor there, they will also not be able to give you a clear response. They'll tell you आप हमें मार्कशीट दे दो, हम देख के बता देंगे, हमें पता नहीं है. बहुत कंफ्यूजन है, 55 स्टेट के अलग अलग रूल है. Let me simplify it. Let me explain to you how eligibility works, and let me also tell you what are the way around it. Most of you are from commerce. 100% of the audience today sitting in the webinar is from commerce. तो इसका मतलब क्या है? इसका मतलब ये है कि you are from a commerce background, which means that whatever are the commerce background special exceptions, they may apply to you. So let me explain those. Let me also explain the general rules first. General rule: no matter where you are applying for your exam in the US, 55 के 55 स्टेट बोर्ड्स इस पे सहमत हैं कि you need 120 credits for the exam and you need 150 credits for your license. तो ये तो ऑलरेडी डिसाइडेड है. अब आप कहोगे क्रेडिट्स क्या है? क्रेडिट्स कुछ नहीं होते यार, क्रेडिट्स ना सब्जेक्ट्स होते हैं. सो इंडिया में यू गेट परसेंटेजेस फॉर योर सब्जेक्ट्स, and in the US, instead of getting percentages for the subjects, you get credits for the subject when you pass it. So your percentages are converted into credits, and when converted into credits, each subject is worth 2.5 to 3. So आपने कॉलेज में अगर पढ़ाई करी है, on an average each year of your university education will give you about 30 equivalent credits. And if you've done your education beyond college level, which is post grad level, so that will give you 30 credits per year still, but also give you additional upper level credits. तो अपर और लोअर लेवल में अभी मैं जाऊंगा, उससे पहले ये समझा देता हूं कि एवरी ईयर ऑफ यूनिवर्सिटी एजुकेशन इज वर्थ 30 क्रेडिट्स. इसमें एक कैवियाट है, सीए, सीएस और आईसीडब्ल्यूए इंडिया में, जिसको अब आईसीएमए या सीएमए भी बोलते हैं. They've also changed their name based on the American qualification. तो CMA, ICSI, CS and CA, ये तीनों को भी यूनिवर्सिटी एजुकेशन कंसिडर किया जाता है. So for completing them in their entirety, you get 60 credits, which is worth 2 years of university education, eligibility के point of view से. And if you've completed only inter, तो 30 credits मिलते हैं. So this means if you're a graduate, and 60% of the audience today is a graduate, तो आपके पास तो 90 credits ही होंगे, 120 नहीं बनेंगे आपके. तो आप परेशान होंगे कि यार ये एलिजिबिलिटी कैसे मीट हो. परेशान नहीं हो. कॉमर्स का होने का फायदा है. आई टोल्ड यू क्या फायदा है. इफ यू हैव 8+ अकाउंटिंग, बिजनेस एंड इकोनॉमिक्स के क्रेडिट्स, 8+ सब्जेक्ट स्पेसिफिक क्रेडिट्स, then you are in a position to give your CPA exam even with just 90 credits. That is the exception. So the beauty of it is, if you can actually, क्यों अब marksheets ये मैं बता देता हूँ, if you can send a copy of your marksheets to us, we can look at your subjects and tell you कि exactly कौन कौन से accounting, business और economics के credits हैं और कौन से नहीं है. अगर नहीं है तो, अगर पूरे हैं तो बहुत बढ़िया. And as a graduate, if you then feel कि यार मेरे को अगर मान लो नहीं हो रहा पूरा, मेरे accounting credits भी नहीं बैठ रहे, मेरे total credits भी नहीं बैठ रहे, मैं क्या करूँ? तो don't be worried still. Why? Because there are bridge courses available that have the same exact syllabus as the CPA exam that you don't even need to pass today. You just have to enroll into. And you can give a promise to certain state boards कि हम over the next course of 2 years ये particular course, ये particular credits पूरे कर देंगे. And you can still become eligible. So the idea is, as far as eligibility is concerned, एक general advice ये ले लो कि if you are interested, if you want to become a CPA, तो ज्यादा कुछ है नहीं आपको रोकने के लिए. एलिजिबिलिटी मुश्किल जरूर है, बट उसके वर्क अराउंड दिए हुए. हाँ, उसको मीट करने के लिए काम करना पड़ेगा इवेंचुअली. अगर आप किसी कोर्स में एनरोल करते हो तो उसको पास करना पड़ेगा इवेंचुअली, बट दैट इज इवेंचुअली ना, दैट्स नॉट टुडे. थिंग इज यू कैन जस्ट गिव दैट प्रॉमिस, start your preparation, pass your 4 CPA exams and then complete it. Then you have time also. That's the beauty of it. So eligibility hopefully मैंने थोड़ी सी simplify कर दी होगी, but it still isn't really possible for me even to go through the 55 state boards and the rules. That will be a whole different 5-hour training. So that is not going to be useful or fruitful. Now इधर आप रुकना चाहोगे. So the best way to deal with this is, I'll tell you, send a copy of your mark sheets to academics@edumontclasses.com. मोहित ये चैट में भी डाल दो, academics@edumontclasses.com. ये आ गया चैट में. Send a copy of your mark sheets here. Subject line में लिख दो seeking CPA eligibility. But we will do the needful. In what sense? We will send a copy of whatever your mark sheets you sent us. We will send a copy to our Wiley US team because we partnered with them. Now the US team will actually, जो US में बैठ रहे हैं, these guys will take a look at your mark sheets and they'll calculate your exact credits. And they'll tell you your exact credits. And they'll tell you कि अब अगर मान लो eligible हो तो मुबारक है, और अगर eligible नहीं हो तो क्या करके हो जाओगे. तो वो एडवाइस भी देंगे साथ में. दैट्स द ब्यूटी ऑफ इट. नाउ इफ यू सेंड योर एलिजिबिलिटी टू गेट चेक्ड एट वन ऑफ माय लोकल कंपेटिटर्स, तो वो बड़ी जल्दी इसको करके दे देंगे. दे विल गिव यू एलिजिबिलिटी इन 30 minutes. But the problem is that eligibility is being checked locally here in India, and that is why it is so quick. क्योंकि कोई भी बंदा अभी चेक करके दे रहा है, एंड उसमें लिखा रहता है कि दिस इज ओनली वैलिड फॉर 2 weeks एंड दिस इज ओनली वैलिड फॉर एनरोलिंग नाउ, अदरवाइज इट इज नॉट वैलिड. तो वो एलिजिबिलिटीज जो है वो अभी टेम्पररी होती है. When you send an eligibility to us, because of the US and India time difference, 24 hours processing time मेरे को देना. But after 24 processing hours, the eligibility report that we will send to you will be the best eligibility report in the entire Asia Pacific region. It will in fact come with a guarantee कि अगर ये eligibility गलत हुई और हमारा advice गलत हुआ, we will refund your fee. That's the point. So you see, सबर का फल थोड़ा मीठा हो जाता है उस केस में. And then again, if you need to get your eligibility checked, feel free to do so. Let's move on to the next slide. Let's talk about the last thing here, which needs to be discussed. That is the fee. So as far as the fee is concerned, total amount is 3,45,482 rupees if you are going through Edumont. Should you choose to go through any other provider, it will become slightly more expensive. But then there are those local providers that you can go to, which will be a bit cheaper if you negotiate for a discount, क्योंकि वो बहुत सस्ते में भी देने को तैयार हो जाते हैं, क्योंकि लोकल मटेरियल है, कॉस्ट नहीं होती उसमें कोई खास. कॉपी क्या होता है ना किसी और से, कोई डेवलपमेंट की कॉस्ट नहीं होती उसमें. So the material in general is cheaper, so they'll be happy to just give you a photocopy of the material. वो कर सकते हो, you can do that sort of thing, but it's not useful, and I'll tell you why I'm saying it's not useful. मुझे क्यों हंसी आ रही है, I'll tell you. जो मर्जी कर लो, सीपीए की जो टोटल खर्चा है वो 3.5 लाख के आसपास बैठेगा ही बैठेगा. First things first, you don't need to have 3,50,000 in your account right now. Instead, you need to be able to manage the cash flow. So let's divide the cash flow in two categories. Category A, which is your study material, coaching, and whatever else supplementary books, etc. you need, and assistance, us sab ka fees, which is what you pay to an institute. So there you have three choices. One is Edumont, and post the discount that we're offering in the webinar, and Mohit poll bhi release kar do sabke liye. By the way, in this poll, you'll be in a position to choose if you want to accept the discount or not. The discount we're offering for the webinar will bring our pricing down to 99,660, which is less than 1 lakh rupees, or 1 lakh rupees to round it up. The other option you have is with other approved partners who are offering approved study material. There the cost is about 1 lakh 15. But again, the idea is that this is limited access. Yeah, unlimited wala nahi hai. This is limited access. And next up is you go with the cheaper option, which is you go with guys who are not approved. तो वो 1,08,900 से शुरू हो जाते हैं. वो बार्गेन भी कर लेते हैं, करते कराते ये बंदे तो 75,000 में भी दे देते हैं. I've seen it happen. 75K में भी दे देते हैं. But then that's the lowest option. Now, with that being said, category B expenses, if you look at, are the exam related expenses, and they are even more expensive. आमतौर पे यही होता ना कि कोचिंग महंगी होती है लेकिन कोर्स तो सस्ता होता. कोर्स का एंट्रेंस फी बड़ा सस्ता होता. नॉट इन द केस ऑफ सीपीए. कोचिंग भी महंगी है और साथ ही साथ जो एग्जाम्स हैं वो भी महंगे हैं. सो इफ यू लुक एट द टोटल कॉस्ट ऑफ 345, तो उसमें से 2.5 lakhs तो एग्जाम कॉस्ट है. That is the idea. So Ivanshu, एक बार बैटरी बदल देना. Battery is out of the camera, but I'll still continue onward with what I'm saying. So the idea is 3,45,000 में से 1 lakh is the coaching fee and study material fee. 2.5 lakhs is basically exam fee. Now, if you look at the exam fee itself, you'll find out कुछ इसमें one time expenses है. 18,000 के आसपास is the expense for your evaluation, and another 13,000 के आसपास is a one time SBA registration expense. So if you take out that one-time expense from it, what you're left with is about 2 lakhs. And 2 lakhs jo hai, that is the actual cost of the exams, the 4 exams. So if you divide 2 lakhs by 4, each exam is actually worth 50,000 Indian rupees. Halaki, I understand that the breakdown is given in much more detail there on the screen. You can see international testing fee is different from NTS and exam fee. But the idea is मिला जुला के round off करके from a cash point of view, 50K is what you probably need to manage for every exam. Now, if you fail the exam, you lose the 50K. But if you don't fail the exam and you pass it in one attempt, then the total cost of CPA is about 3.5 lakhs. सब मिला जुला के। इसमें भी there are easier options to pay. For example, if you want to pay for our fee via no cost EMIs, you obviously have a choice. So for no cost EMIs, our tenures range from 6 months. Actually, they range from 3 months. Most common is 6 months, 9 months, up to 12 months. So up to 12 months is the idea. Now, with that being said, let's just let everybody fill in the poll, and let's, Himanshu, could you just turn the camera on when it's ready? Let me just come back onto the screen. Then let's do a Q&A session. तो जो भी जिसके सवाल है ना, I'll be happy to answer those questions. जो भी जिसके मन में चल रहा है, feel free to ask me. I'll be happy to do it, deal with it. Just fill in the poll. मोहित, poll कितना रहेगा, कितने लोगों का रह गया? अभी तो 50% नहीं, अभी जवाब दे दो, बाकी 50% पहले पोल रिस्पॉन्ड कर दो। आपको सीपीए के बारे में क्या समझ में आया, अच्छा लगा, नहीं लगा, हमारे बारे में कहाँ से जाना, and again, are you interested in continuing onward? Because if you're not interested, we don't want to chase after you at all. Given that this is the last BEC batch on planet Earth, especially from Edumont, we expect a rush sort of a situation anyway to occur. So we don't want to go after you if you're not interested. And if you are interested, we'll be happy to help you out with the process, and we'll help you out in doing things more quickly. That is our agenda here. So go ahead, please feel free to fill in the poll. Now, I also want to raise one point here कि अगर मान लो यार 23 में for some reason you're not able to prepare, मतलब अगर आपको लगता है 23 में मैंने एनरोल तो कर लिया, मैं बीईसी के लिए तैयारी करनी शुरू भी कर दी, पर बीच में बीमार पड़ गया या कुछ भी हो गया और आपका फोकस हट गया, आप नहीं कर पाते यार, तो बीईसी का पेपर दे ही नहीं पाए, तो 24 के पैटर्न पे आ जाओगे, तो परेशान नहीं होना. दैट्स द ब्यूटी ऑफ एक्सेस टिल यू पास. यू विल हैव एक्सेस टू द अपडेटेड 24 कंटेंट एज वेल. So it doesn't matter. The only thing that is really beneficial and at stake right now is if you join in quickly, you can still have a stab at it. You can still have an attempt at passing the BEC exam. अगर वो नहीं हो पाएगा तो कोई नहीं, फिर सबके जो नॉर्मल रास्ता है उसके हिसाब से चलने के लिए भी जो टूल्स चाहिए होंगे will be available to you. Let's take up a few questions.
Start with the recent one. Divyam question is, can you put light on past results of your students from whom we can connect?
Yes. Hey Divyam, I'm happy to. Divyam का सवाल है, can you shed some light onto your past results, and could you tell us who can we connect with from past students who can verify? मैंने तो अपनी कहानी सुना दी, Divyam wants to verify. So you're absolutely right, and कोई एक तो है नहीं, there are so many options. So let us know which city you're in. We'll get you connected with somebody who's an alumni from there, and they'll sort of get in touch with you, tell you about the service, tell you about their experience, how their result came, and you'll be in a position to get in touch with them. Absolutely. तो कोई दिक्कत ही नहीं है दिव्यम. All you have to do is reach out to your academic counselor, and once you're in touch with them, जो भी Edumont से आपके साथ बात कर रहे हैं, get in touch with them and then tell them, give us, I want to talk to somebody who's passed an exam, who's become a CPA, somebody who's in the works but काम हो रहा है, पढ़ रहा है, देख रहा है, somebody from my area. We'll find you something like that. That's the beauty of it, because it's not a new operation, it's an old operation now, multiple years I've been through. So we've got people all over India, we've got people all across different corporates, so we can probably even find you a person from your company. That's how it is.
Don't get me wrong.
नहीं नहीं दिव्यम, this is not at all me taking you wrong. कोई दिक्कत नहीं, रोहतक से भी कोई ना कोई मिल जाएगा. हाँ वही, like I told you, हर जगह से कोई ना कोई होगा ही होगा. So the beauty of it is, don't worry at all. And Divyam, I'm not taking this wrongly at all. In fact, it's a very wonderful saying. They say, trust, but always verify. So that's a good thing. It's a good idea. Do verify. In fact, do attend a class tomorrow if you want to. कल डेमो क्लास के लिए जिसको रजिस्टर होना है, feel free to reach out to your program advisors. Ask them, tell them, I want to take a class. You have a poll? You want to do that poll? मैं poll ही release कर दो फिर. Everybody's responded in the exit poll?
Yeah.
Almost. एक दो बंदे रह गए होंगे. एक दो बंदे रह जाते हैं हमेशा यार, एक दो बंदे रह गए. ये एग्जिट पोल जरा खत्म करो तो मैं क्लास का इनवाइट का पोल भी डालूं, तो फिर जिसको रजिस्टर करना है कल की क्लास के लिए वो आ जाओ. बाय द वे, कल कोई स्पेशल क्लास नहीं है, कोई डेमो क्लास नहीं है. टुमारो वी डूइंग अ रेगुलर क्लास. बीईसी ही चला रहा हूँ ऑब्वियसली, एंड बीईसी की क्लास में जो नॉर्मल बच्चे हैं चैप्टर 5 से शुरू कर रहे हैं, हम वहां पे. बट स्टिल, इवन इफ यू ज्वाइन फ्रॉम द मिडल ऑफ द क्लास इन चैप्टर 5, And if you're able to understand what we're teaching, that will be a huge bonus. That will give you the necessary confidence to take the next step. So feel free, and we are excited to have you in our class as attendees. With that being said, you should also, if you're shortlisting any other institute, you should also take a live trial class, live class, running class. ऐसी क्लास नहीं जो डेमो के लिए सेट की है स्पेशली, जैसे कि ये सेशन स्पेशली डेमो के लिए सेट किया ना, तो एवरी कंपनी प्रेजेंट्स देयर बेस्ट इमेज हियर. गो फॉर अ एक्चुअल क्लास जहां बाकी लोग जो नॉर्मल स्टूडेंट है वो भी पढ़ रहे हैं. गो फॉर दैट क्लास, वहां पता चलता है डे टू डे की रियलिटी क्या है. And don't skip it. No matter who you're paying, don't just pay out your money. Even if you're getting a huge discount, don't just pay people. Take a trial first. This is my advice. I said this exact same thing in my TED talk as well. This was the very point of that. कि अब मार्केटिंग पे भरोसा नहीं करो, अपनी आंखों पे करो. That is the idea. So I'd also like to welcome everybody. उसका पोल है, मोहित ने रिलीज भी कर दिया on your screen. If you're interested, I'd like to welcome you for a class tomorrow. Go ahead, fill it in. Okay, any other questions? I hope that answers that particular question. Any other questions that I can answer with? Anybody wants to talk? If you want to talk, just simply raise hand. If you don't know how to raise hand, put it in the chat. If you don't know how to put things in the chat, then give a call to your program advisor and they'll put you in touch with me after the session. क्योंकि ऐसा नहीं कि सेशन खत्म होने के बाद कोई जवाब नहीं मिलेंगे, तब भी मिल जाएंगे. So after the session ends, if you still have questions, feel free to reach out to your program advisor. They can get you connected with me. It's not a problem. Saturday, Sunday, I'm welcome to the idea of talking to new students. Okay. So these are our contact details and some of the places that we've been published or talked about, the media platforms where we've been spoken about. Those are right here. With that being said, Mohit, do we have any questions that I can answer?
The one question was there with the Divyang, we started the difference between YB and
Beckers.
Becker.
So ये भी एक सवाल पूछा गया था. I think it was Divyang only who asked this question. What is the difference between Wiley and Beckers? So let me give you a clear answer on that. Number one, and in terms of content, in terms of what is inside the test bank, there is no difference between Wiley, Rogers, Sargent, Beckers, Gleam, anybody. All 5 of the approved partners have essentially the same content. That is why the content is approved. वरना अप्रूव नहीं होता ना. अगर थोड़ा सा भी अलग है, थोड़ा सा भी कॉपीड है, किसी का अलग कंटेंट लेके आपने कुछ बनाया है, तो अप्रूवल साइकिल से पास ही नहीं होता. That's number one. Number two, the key difference between the two providers is in the way they are being marketed. By the way, today is Peter Olinto, the head faculty at Becker's last day. So Peter Olinto just resigned today. I don't know, Mohit, if you knew that, and if the audience members knew that. He just resigned today. Today is his last day at Becker's. He's leaving. But with that being said, even if you go with the Beckers or even if you go with the Wiley, since the content is essentially the same, the key differentiator actually in them is the bang for buck that you get, is the features that you get out of them. Now, what I find is a lot of the features are very common. The key differentiator for us when we were selecting was actually access to UPass. So if you ask me कि Wiley और Beckers में क्या फर्क है, I'll tell you. Wiley is a much older company. It's 200 years old. It's also listed on the New York Stock Exchange, and it's one of the world's largest publishing companies, much bigger in size than Beckers. Beckers is a relatively newer company. Wiley has had traditionally the lion's share in the market, and Beckers is the company that's coming on board to gain more share from the market, to gain more students. They're the ones who are punching a hole through the wall. So Beckers is doing much better marketing and is doing much more advertisement and is doing much more posting on social media than a traditional company like Wiley does. But Wiley is using its financial might, its wealth, in making sure its customers are retained. How? By giving you access till you pass. This makes sure that you don't leave out after 1.5 or 2 years because you have access till you pass. जब तक pass हो नहीं जाते, you stick with Wiley. You don't go and buy separate test banks. So you stay within the ecosystem. So दोनों की strategies में फर्क है. That's how they're doing business. From a student standpoint, I would say there really isn't any sense in differentiating between the two. कोई sense है नहीं. The only thing you should really know is that both of them have approved content, और दोनों में से किसी से भी पढ़ लो, पास हो जाओगे, अच्छे नंबर आ जाएंगे, इसका अच्छा स्कोप है. That is the way it is, especially if you study using the right method. If you follow the 5 steps, if you follow the general rule. I hope that answers your question. Divya.
Next question is from Vivek. I am not that good in academics, so can I do do it along with my full-time job?
So Vivek sir ने एक सवाल पूछा है कि I'm not that great with academics and I'm also full-time employed, so can I do CPA along with my job? Let me give you an answer to this question. In fact, this was not covered anywhere in the PPT, so it's a great question. I'll tell you. Number one, if you're a working professional, you need to put in 2 hours daily. तो विवेक सर 2 घंटा डेली निकाल पाओगे? पहला सवाल ये है मेरा. अगर हाँ तो काफी हद तक प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व हो जाती है. सेकंड थिंग इज यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड विवेक सर, दिस इज नॉट अ पेपर व्हिच इज लाइक द इंडियन स्टडी जहां किताब लेके बैठना है. इट्स नॉट एन इंडियनाइज्ड स्टडी पैटर्न. द स्टडी पैटर्न इटसेल्फ is very different. So what you intend to do is okay, the things that you consider that make you academically weak or not that great or not so strong, the things that you're basing this on, your past marks, etc., those are different. And the effort that you're imagining it takes to do CPA, kitab leke baithe rehna, that is very different from the actual truth, which is CPA mein, you won't be keeping a book with you all the time. It will rather be your laptop which has your online test bank, and you'll be spending time solving questions. दिमाग लड़ाने में उसमें ज्यादा टाइम स्पेंड करोगे. So if you're not academically inclined and if you feel you have a full-time job, the only thing you have to ask yourself is, do you have a 2 hour commitment daily? If you have that, with consistency you can pass this exam. That's the beauty of it. But 2 hours daily का मतलब daily है. ये नहीं होना चाहिए फिर कि मंडे को तो मैंने 2 घंटे दिए थे, ट्यूसडे को मैं थक गया था और मैं जल्दी सो गया था और मैंने नहीं पढ़ाई करी. It shouldn't be that way. Every day. That is the key point. I hope that answers your question, Vivek sir. Let me also add a little bit of detail in this answer. Let me also tell you, अगर मैं इसकी timeline आपको present करूं CPA की, तो कुछ इस तरह से होगी. BEC as an exam is a shorter exam. It's a simpler exam. Will require only 3 months of preparation plus training. मतलब 3 plus 3 नहीं, included in the 3. 1.5 months of training, 1.5 months of self study. 3 महीने. Same is the case with audit. उसमें भी 1.5 महीना ट्रेनिंग है और 1.5 महीने की उसकी सेल्फ स्टडी है. So 3 plus 3 is 6 months. Next up is FAR and Reg. If you give up FAR first, तो FAR जो है उसके अंदर 2 months की ट्रेनिंग होगी और 2 months की सेल्फ स्टडी, तो 4 months की टाइमलाइन होगी. And then when you get to Reg is also a laborious and lengthy subject. Although in 24 उसको थोड़ा shorten किया जा रहा है. So there again you will require 3 more months. Assuming again that you will go through the learning curve and you will become a little faster towards the end. तो होता है पहले पेपर में ज्यादा टाइम लगता है, डर ज्यादा होता है क्योंकि, और फोर्थ पेपर इज एक्चुअली बिट मोर फास्टर बिकॉज 3 पास करके आ चुके होते हो, तो फीलिंग होती है हाथी निकल गया पूछ रहेगी. So you feel more comfortable with the fourth exam. So keeping that in mind, if reg is your fourth exam, 3 months for that. If you give reg first, 4 months उसके लिए, 3 months then for FAR. Because training will require 2 months, self study will fluctuate, and a total of 13 to 14 months can be anticipated. तो वही वो 12 महीने की जो टाइमलाइन है रफ होती है. 14 months is the exact timeline if it's expanded, and 13 months if you look at the actual timeline, then I anticipate for a full-time working professional giving 2 hours daily. If you're a full-time student, if you have more time than 2 hours daily, I suspect ये 13-14 महीने नहीं, you'll be able to blitz this record and come down to 7, 8, even 10 months or less than that. That's what I expect would be the logical move for you as a full-time student. You'll be able to do much more in much less in terms of months. That's how I look at it. I hope that answers your question to a certain extent.
Devin wants to meet you personally, so where he can meet.
So Devin, if you're from Delhi, you're welcome to meet us. We have 2 offices in Noida. You can meet me in either Sector 62, which is our corporate office, or most of the time I'm here. Actually, this is our studio office. This is a Sector 134. This is where we have the classroom studio, we have our office studio, we have a podcast wall, all of those good things. So you can meet me here also. It depends on which day of the week you're coming through. If you're coming probably from Monday to Friday, I might be able to meet you in Sector 62. If you're coming on the weekend, you will have to come to this place. If you want to meet me personally, you'll have to come to 134. फिर Sector 62 में मैं आपको नहीं मिल पाऊंगा. Because Saturday, Sunday, I am here without fear. That's how it is. I hope that answers your question. And if you're not from Delhi, then virtually is our option. फिर हम virtually connect कर लेंगे.
So maybe the question is, how will team help in case I am looking to move with 2 papers at a time?
So if whose question is this? Sorry. Sumendra, if you're looking to do 2 questions at a time, तो मेरी तरफ से तो प्रॉब्लम नहीं है ना यार. मेरी तरफ से तो सारी ऑप्शंस अवेलेबल है. हम तो क्लासेस भी पैरेलल रन करते हैं. तो अभी बीईसी के साथ पैरेलली ऑडिट भी चल रहा होगा, तो क्लासेस भी दोनों की ले लो अगर ले सकते हो तो, और पढ़ाई भी इकट्ठे कर लो, और गेम प्लान कॉल भी दोनों सब्जेक्ट्स इकट्ठे करा लो। मेरा तो काम और टाइम बचेगा, आई डोंट माइंड इट, बट द थिंग इज सुमित्र, यू विल एंड अप टेकिंग मोर प्रेशर ऑन यू देन नीडेड। ये टू पेपर वाली जो फिलोसफी है ना, मैं बताता हूँ कहाँ से आई है और कैसे शुरू हुई है। सो बैक व्हेन आई स्टार्टेड माय सीपीए एज अ स्टूडेंट, मैं जब पढ़ना शुरू किया था तो पेपर सिर्फ यूएस में होते थे, तो हमें एक ट्रिप मिलती थी, क्योंकि एक ही ट्रिप अफोर्ड कर पाते थे यार, 4 बार चक्कर कौन लगाएगा यूएस का, महंगा इतना है, 2-2.5 लाख की तो टिकटें ही है। तो एक बार में हमने जाकर पेपर देने होते थे, तो हम चारों पेपर इकट्ठे देते थे। बाय द टाइम आई एक्चुअली अप्लाइड फॉर माई एनटीएस, लकीली इनफ वी वर इन द फर्स्ट जनरेशन ऑफ इंडियंस हु वर अलाउड टू गो टू दुबई। तो मेरी किस्मत थोड़ी सी खुल गई कि मेरे को दुबई का मौका मिल गया कि मैं दुबई में पेपर दे सकूं। तो हमने क्या किया कि दुबई की 2 ट्रिप हो जाएंगी जितने में यूएस की एक ट्रिप है, दो छोड़ो 3 ही हो जाएंगी। सो वी डिसाइडेड इन दैट केस, दैट जनरेशन ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स डिसाइडेड कि हम दो दो करके पेपर दे देंगे, 2 पेपर इकट्ठे जाके एक बार में दुबई में, फिर 2 पेपर और दे देंगे एक और ट्रिप लगा के। तो दो दो ऐसे थे। अब आपके केस में तो और भी किस्मत खुल गई है, क्यों? क्योंकि टेस्टिंग इज इन इंडिया, ना यूएस जाना है ना दुबई जाना है, आपको तो गाड़ी चला के नियरेस्ट सेंटर तक जाना है। तो इफ दैट इज द गेम, why take on the pressure of having 2 papers together? It would be better than to do it one by one. अगर आपको लगता है आपके पास टाइम एक्स्ट्रा है टू पुट इन, तो मैं ये सजेस्ट करूंगा कि एक पेपर को ज्यादा स्पीड से उठा लो। अगर उसको ट्रेनिंग प्लस सेल्फ स्टडी के लिए 3 महीने कह रहा हूं मैं, तो आप 1.5 महीने में सारा काम कर दो, ट्रेनिंग प्लस सेल्फ स्टडी इंक्लूड करके। वो ज्यादा बेनिफिशियल होगा रादर देन एक दिन में दो दो सब्जेक्ट पढ़ने का। तो उससे फोकस भी डिवाइड होगा, उससे एफिशिएंसी भी डिवाइड होगी, और वो प्रेशर लेने की आपको जरूरत है नहीं। फिर भी अगर इच्छा हो तो बी माई गेस्ट, our team will be happy to help you in the process. I hope that answers your question, Sumendra sir. Okay, what next? Any other questions that I can answer with? That's it. क्या बात कर रहे हो यार, 5-6 सवाल इतने लोग होंगे, कुछ तो और होगा ही। बताओ बताओ यार, if there are any questions, we're waiting, we're happy to have you here, asking questions. Put it in the chat or raise hand. Once you raise hand, we'll be in a position to talk as well. I don't mind it. बाकी अगर नहीं है क्वेश्चंस, जनरली यू फील कि हो गया, सारी इन्फॉर्मेशन मिल गई है, लेट्स जस्ट टेक अ ट्रायल क्लास एंड देन टेक इट फॉरवर्ड। इफ दैट्स वेयर यू आर एट, आई टोटली गेट इट, नॉट अ प्रॉब्लम। इन दैट केस फील फ्री टू लीव, in fact have a great weekend ahead. If you're coming tomorrow, let's meet in the morning. If you're not coming tomorrow, no problem, meet you next week. If not, no problem, good luck to you. But uske aage BEC hai nahi, so you have about this 1 week to actually take a call on it, because the batch is starting on Mohit, batch is starting on the 9th of July. That's the date.
The question is here, what paper
My pleasure, Deepak sir.
are required from student end?
So what paper formalities are required from the students end? Number one, you're going to need a copy of your passport. Number two, you're going to need a copy of your mark sheets, which is called transcript. So transcript is an official copy of your mark sheets that your university will have to issue. Number three, you're going to need an official copy or an attested copy of your college degree and whatever else qualifications you put in. जैसे अगर सीए की डिग्री है तो सीए की डिग्री का ऑफिशियल कॉपी, अगर एमबीए की है तो एमबीए की डिग्री का ऑफिशियल कॉपी। दैट्स इट, दीज आर 3 डॉक्यूमेंट्स यू रियली नीड। इसके अलावा ना पैन चाहिए ना आधार चाहिए, कुछ और नहीं चाहिए, ये 3 डॉक्यूमेंट्स हैं, दैट्स इट। और इन 3 डॉक्यूमेंट्स को कैसे अरेंज करना है, आपकी इंस्टीट्यूशन से क्या बात करनी है, उनको क्या बोलना है, उनसे कैसे ये मंगवाना है, दैट होल थिंग इज टेकन केयर ऑफ बाय एड्यूमॉन्ट। सो इवन दैट इज नॉट रियली हैसल। इसलिए मैंने पीपीटी में आज उसकी बात नहीं करी, जिक्र नहीं किया, बिकॉज इवन दो यू आर राइट कि ये चीज जाननी जरूरी तो है, but it's not really a hassle as such for most people. So for most people it's easy to find a copy of your passport and it's easy to get a transcript as well. तो अगर कोई इसमें दिक्कत भी हो तो we're there to help you out in that process. I hope that answers your question, sir. 3 ही डॉक्यूमेंट्स हैं सरकारी जो हमें चाहिए एक्चुअली, डिग्री की कॉपी ऑफिशियल, मार्कशीट्स की ऑफिशियल कॉपी कॉल्ड ट्रांसक्रिप्ट, एंड लास्टली आपको आपका पासपोर्ट का कॉपी चाहिए होगा, दैट्स इट। और बताओ जी, कोई और सवाल किसी के मन में? ठीक है, सो इट सीम्स एज ऑफ नाउ द पाइपलाइन रन ड्राई। मैंने कुछ क्वेश्चंस आंसर कर दिए। अगर अभी भी आपके कुछ सवाल हैं जो आप शायद चैट में लिख रहे हो, अभी वेट कर रहे हो या सोच रहे हो, तो कोई चिंता की बात नहीं है, वी विल एंड द सेशन इन अ मिनट और सो। और अगर आपके क्वेश्चन आंसर ना हो उस टाइम पे, फील फ्री टू रीच आउट टू योर एकेडमिक काउंसलर्स, योर प्रोग्राम एडवाइजर्स, दे विल बी इन अ पोजीशन टू कनेक्ट यू विद मी, आई विल बी इन अ पोजीशन टू हेल्प यू आउट इवन आफ्टर द वेबिनार एंड्स, इट्स नॉट अ प्रॉब्लम। With that being said, thank you so much for giving me your time. Thank you so much for being here. I hope to see you again tomorrow. And if not, I wish you good luck. Have a great weekend. Bye, folks.